Chapter 465. The sound of horses' hooves broke the silence of the morning. A group of men clad in armor and carrying banners galloped over on their horses and quickly spread out. Many of them pulled out their weapons and surrounded Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi in the middle. Their faces were filled with malicious intent. When they saw the beautiful faces of the two beautiful girls, their greed and lust grew even stronger. "Who are these people?" Tang Xiaoxi asked with a frown. Qin Yin quietly placed her palm on her sword and said, "Mercenaries." That's right, they were all mercenaries. There were at least 100 of them, and judging from the sound of hooves, there seemed to be more. Lin Muyu mounted the horse and tied the Qianquan pouch to her waist. She raised her hand and sheathed star. She looked at the mercenaries around her coldly and stood still, waiting for an opportunity to strike. At this moment, a mercenary with a face full of beard rode forward. He glanced at Tao Wu's huge body, then looked at Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi's attire and injuries. He couldn't help but smile. "It seems that the divine beast Tao Wu died in your hands." "Yes, make way. We're leaving," Qin Yin said with a cold face. "You want to leave just like that?" The mercenary leader couldn't help but laugh. "Since you're the ones who killed Tao Wu, you must have some skills. Do you mind showing my brothers what you've got?" Lin Muyu immediately knew that these mercenaries couldn't sense the power of a sanctuary expert, so they didn't know if the three of them really had the ability to kill Tao Wu, or if they had killed Tao Wu through trickery. This person was just testing them. If they really didn't have the ability to kill Tao Wu, then they would attack immediately. Clang. Lin Muyu suddenly pulled out her sword and looked at the group of people around her coldly. The group of mercenaries also pulled out their swords and bows. The atmosphere was tense. "This sword." The bearded mercenary leader's eyes turned cold. "Kid, this sword is the divine weapon that fell into the human world, isn't it?" "Yes." Lin Muyu didn't deny it. Very good, the bearded man said twice and shouted, "Captain, the divine weapon is here." Another group of mercenaries came from the forest behind. The leader seemed to be a little familiar. He was about 40 years old, had a fierce face, and had a vicious look in his eyes. He held the reins tightly with both hands and rode his horse under the protection of dozens of people. He stared at Lin Muyu and sneered. "Tell me, how did you get this sword? So many cultivators have died here, and even many people from the Empire's army have died. How did a young boy like you get this sword? Did you take advantage of the fact that everyone died together with Tao Wu to get this sword?" Tang Xiaoxi was curious and couldn't help but laugh. She raised her eyebrows and said, "You middle-aged man, your words are really interesting. We killed Tao Wu and got this sword. What do you mean by taking advantage of the situation? If we really took advantage of the situation to get this sword, would you dare to snatch it?" The smile in the mercenary leader's eyes deepened. He raised his hand and said, "Brothers, I want these two girls alive. Shoot this boy into a hedgehog." "Hee, I didn't expect that we, the Scorching Wind mercenary group, would pick up such a big bargain as soon as we arrived in Heaven's Pivot province. Humph, Tao Wu's spirit stones must be in this boy's hands. Get rid of him for me. But be careful, that divine weapon must be powerful." "You are the Scorching Wind mercenary group?" Lin Muyu suddenly smiled. "What's wrong? Have you also heard of the Scorching Wind mercenary group?" The mercenary leader said proudly. "No." Lin Muyu shook her head. The smile on her face became even more radiant. She smiled and said, "You are the leader of the Scorching Wind mercenary group, Lei Qianhai? Do you still remember the Lin Muyu you wanted to kill 4 years ago?" Lin Muyu. Lei Qianhai's body trembled as he stared fixedly at Lin Muyu's face. The more he looked at this face, the more familiar it became. Compared to the Lin Muyu of the past, this face was less childish and arrogant, but more calm and composed. Lei Qianhai's hands couldn't help but tremble as he said, You're really the commander of the Lanyan City's Brave Dragon Battalion, Lin Muyu." "What, you don't recognize me anymore?" The killing intent in Lin Muyu's eyes intensified. "Don't tell me you have also forgotten that you sent people to kill me and Chu Yao?" Lei Qianhai urged his horse to retreat several steps. His face was aghast. Suddenly, his expression turned malevolent. He roared, "Attack, kill them all. Leave no one alive. Quick." Around them, tens of sharp arrows shot towards them. Block them. Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi formed a defensive formation with their backs against each other. They took out their dragon blood battle shields and instantly, the arrows bounced off the shields. Qin Yin's sacred dragon shield also revolved around her body, deflecting the attacks of the mercenaries. Tang Xiaoxi had it even easier. She used her two-tailed firefox to blow away the arrows with just the aura of her flames. Lei Qianhai, you still want to leave? Lin Muyu leapt up and charged towards Lei Qianhai like an eagle hunting for its prey. She didn't even use her sword. Instead, she suddenly opened her palm and a dense fiery red douqi vortex appeared between her fingers. It was the king's douqi. Ah! Lei Qianhai suddenly turned around and swept his long blade horizontally. However, with a dang sound, the blade was actually broken by Lin Muyu's palm. The king's douqi was simply invincible against this kind of fine steel weapon. Hua! The 5 fingers pierced through Lei Qianhai's condensed douqi with an unstoppable force. Lin Muyu frowned and said, "Since you know my name, then hurry up and leave before I change my mind." "Yes, we will leave, right now." The Scorching Wind mercenary group hurriedly left. How would they dare to ask for Tao Wu's spiritual stones? After all, even if it was 100,000 years old spiritual beast's spiritual stone, they needed to be alive to enjoy it. Swoosh! Lin Muyu shook her arm and the great treasure sword martial spirit slowly dissipated. She let out a sigh and turned around to look behind her. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi did not kill anyone. They were only protecting themselves. The 2 girls did not have a strong killing intent. In fact, Lin Muyu knew that both Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were very kind girls. They would not kill anyone unless they had no other choice, even if it was a bad guy. Xiao Yin, Xiaoxi, let's go. Otherwise, there will be more trouble. Yes. The 3 of them mounted their horses and galloped away from where Swan Ni's corpse was. Along the way, they could still see an endless stream of cultivators and private armies from various clans rushing over. After all, the temptation of a divine weapon was too great. However, the stars were already sheathed, so these people could not see any clues. At most, they only saw Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi as a feast for the eyes. They did not cause too much trouble. After leaving the forest, a group of people came toward them. It was Yu Qikai and the others. Young hero Lin Ji. Yu Qikai also recognized Lin Ji. Are you all right?" he asked with wide eyes. "We're fine. Thank you for your concern, young Master Yuqi." Lin Muyu cupped her fists and smiled. "Baian is simply too powerful. None of us are a match for it, and we were even injured. We won't be staying for long. Young Lord Yuqi, please be careful and pay attention to your safety." "Yes." Yu Qikai looked at Lin Muyu in confusion. Then I won't send you off. Many thanks." Lin Muyu led Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi away on their horses. Yu Qikai watched in a daze as the 3 of them went further and further away. At this time an old man draped in a cloak said indifferently, "Young master, the divine weapon has probably been taken." "Elderly, why do you say that?" Elderly stroked his beard. "The person whom young master called Lin Ji just now. The long sword on his back emitted a very strong sword soul power. It's the highest level of a sacred beast's soul. If there are no accidents, that sword is a divine weapon that everyone is fighting for." "What?" Yu Qikai was stunned. Elderly said indifferently, "Young master, should we chase after him and snatch the sword?" Chapter 466. Forget it. Yu Qikai shook his head gently and said, Actually, I should have thought of it. In the holy temple of Lanyan City, there was also a person who used to call himself Lin Ji. I should have guessed it was him." Elderly was stunned. "Young master, are you saying that the lad just now is Lin Muyu of the 4 heroes of Lanyan City?" "That's right." A trace of sadness flashed across Yu Qikai's face and he said, "Otherwise, who would have the ability to snatch the divine weapon and kill the fierce beast Swanni among more than 10,000 practitioners?" Elderly's eyes were cold. "Young master, we have nearly 300 people and many of them are experts with extraordinary cultivation. If we use force, Lin Muyu will be at a disadvantage. As long as we snatch that divine weapon, we can definitely make the family rise again. All we need is an order from young master." "Forget it." Kai's eyes were cold. Can't Elder see it? Lin Muyu has restrained his aura. It is said that he has already entered the ranks of the Holy Region a few months ago. With his talent, I'm afraid he has already comprehended the king's fighting flame and stepped into the Holy King realm. Although we have more people, can we really defeat a Holy King with dual martial souls? Moreover, Elder, did you notice that Lin Muyu is so respectful to the two beauties behind him? Who else in the world can make Marquis Lin Muyu, so respectful? Elderly was shocked. Does young master think that those two girls are Her Highness Qinin and Princess Tang Xiaoxi? Other than the two of them, who else has such peerless beauty and unparalleled temperament? Kai sighed and said, people like Lin Muyu are destined to be dragons among men. Why should we be enemies with such people? Forget it, forget it. Tian and Yen are still struggling at death's door in Lanyan City. Since Her Highness the Empress has turned a blind eye to our family, we can't make trouble on our own. Then where do we go now? Let's go to the Cloud Ridge and look around. Let's see if we can find anything. Yes. The war horses galloped until midnight, but they did not see any inns along the way. Left with no choice, they could only sleep in the open. Lin Muyu led the horse, identified the convenient location, and entered the dragon-seeking forest with the two beauties. They found a dry place under a cliff and set up a simple tent. The tent was green in color so it would not be easily discovered. The late autumn night was cold. The cold wind blew through the forest, and the howling of wolves could be heard in the distance. Lin Muyu carried a pile of dry firewood and lit a bonfire. Then she found a military pot in the cosmos sack, poured some water, added oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar, and washed some of the swan knees leg meat. According to common sense, this should be the most delicious meat on the swan knees body. After chopping up the meat, she put it into the pot. After cooking it for a while, she could actually see a blue light seeping out of the pot. Sure enough, it was just as the legend said. The meat of the swan knees ancient beast could be regarded as spirit meat. After eating it, it could enhance the cultivation of a cultivator. Lin Muyu was secretly happy. If this was true, the swan knees meat in her cosmos sack, Qinin, and Tang Xiaoxi added together would be enough for 3 people to eat for half a year. In any case, the meat would not rot in a different space. If she cultivated diligently in this half a year, she might be able to step into the Saint Origin realm. At the very least, she would at least reach the Saint Trace realm. She still had confidence in this. It smells so good. Qinin snuggled up to him and said with a smile. Lin Muyu nodded. After eating the meat soup, Xiaoyin, you should circulate the dragon beheading art repeatedly, and see if there is any difference in the cultivation effect compared to usual. And, gently caressing Qin Yin's fragrant shoulder, Lin Muyu looked at the jealous Tang Xiaoxi, and couldn't help but smile. Xiaoxi's 2 firefoxes also need spiritual energy to improve their cultivation, so we should eat one more. I hope the 3 of us can all step into the God realm together, and even reach the God Emperor realm in the end. Only then will I have the opportunity to use the reincarnation power to take you back to my hometown and experience the life there. Tang Xiaoxi giggled. She put down the knife in her hand, knelt on the ground, and gracefully crawled over to Lin Muyu. She put her hands on Lin Muyu's knees and quietly pressed her breasts on his legs. Smiling, she asked, Mu, what is your hometown like? Describe it to me and Xiaoyin first. My hometown. Lin Muyu thought for a moment and said, There, the country I came from is called China, and the city where my hometown is located is called Shanghai. It is a beautiful city, the roads are especially wide, the buildings are very tall, and the donkeys running on the roads are also very dazzling. We have many friends there, including my father and brother, but, his expression darkened. But I don't know why I actually came to this world, and my body in the other world should still be in a deep sleep, right? Or perhaps, my body also disappeared. How worried would my father and brother be? It's okay. Qinin rested her face on his chest and said softly, If we have the power of reincarnation, we can completely reverse time and return to the moment when you disappeared. Besides, we have eternal life, so it's okay. Lin Muyu looked at the stars in the sky, holding Qin Yin's hand in one hand and Tang Xiaoxi's hand in the other. He said emotionally, In my world, A man can only love one woman at a time, but if we really have eternal life, will the two of you still accompany me in 1,000 years or 10,000 years? Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi looked up at him at the same time, their beautiful eyes filled with nostalgia. Qin Yin smiled and said, "Who knows in 1,000 years or 10,000 years? Even if we can't accompany you, we will always like you and love you." 10,000 years so long. Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were a bit blurred. She suddenly lowered her head and used her face to caress the back of Lin Muyu's hand. She said softly, "Ever since we met in Kathaya City, Xiaoxi has liked you. I don't hide my love for you. I don't care what others think of me, I like you. No one can change that. This is my life. How can I be controlled by others?" Lin Muyu was very touched. He held the two girls' hands tightly and said, "Then we have a promise. After 1,000 years or 10,000 years, we will still be together." "Yes." The two girls nodded at the same time, their eyes full of seriousness. At this time, the fragrance of meat in the soup pot filled the air. Although the Swanee's body was very large, its muscles were very fine. This meat was naturally not ordinary delicious. Lin Muyu took out bowls, one for each person. The two girls chewed slowly while Lin Muyu ate 3 bowls in a row. No matter how much spirit energy the Swanee meat contained, for Lin Muyu, it was a kind of meat that could replenish her strength. Soon the pot of meat was finished. After drinking water, it was already late at night. The 3 horses were grazing in the valley not far away. It was time for them to sleep. This tent was not big, but it was not small either. After lying down, Lin Muyu's heart was beating like a drum. Although Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were also sleeping in their clothes, it would be a lie to say that he was not tempted to lie with 2 stunning beauties. As a result, he sat up and cultivated. The dragon forging bone remnant scroll forged new skills and blood vessels. After 1 cycle, Lin Muyu felt a mysterious spirit energy emerge from the depths of her body. This was the spirit energy provided by the Swanee's meat. After the 2nd cycle of the dragon forging bone remnant scroll, the strength of the battle chi in her chi-si also seemed to be a lot more tyrannical. The capacity of her chi-si was also clearly increased. Sure enough, after eating the Swanee's meat, the effect of cultivation was as much as 4 to 5 times that of normal. Overjoyed, Lin Muyu silently cultivated. On the side, Qin Yin was quietly cultivating the Dragon Slayer art with her eyes closed. Tang Xiaoxi was leaning against the quilt. She didn't know when she had fallen asleep, but the 2-tailed fire fox on her shoulder was constantly jumping. It seemed that it could absorb the spirit energy provided by the Swanee's meat even when its master was asleep. The fire fox's tail gradually grew stronger, which also meant that the power of Tang Xiaoxi's martial soul was also becoming more powerful. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Muyu slowly opened his eyes. The king's battle flame in his chi-si had become increasingly vigorous. The cultivation effect was very obvious. But at this moment, an extremely strange feeling of heat rose from the depths of his heart. He was almost unable to close his eyes. His whole body was also covered in sweat. The heat in his body had to be expelled quickly. What was even more strange was that his mind seemed to be quickly losing control. Xiao Yin, he curled up in the quilt, desperately using the king's battle flame to suppress the restlessness in his body. "What's wrong, you?" Qin Yin lowered her head to look at him. She bent down and moved her face close to his. This was even more incredible. A restlessness that came from the bottom of his heart made Lin Muyu completely unable to calm down. He quickly hugged Qin Yin and kissed her red lips. His palm climbed up to the holy and pure peaks that people yearned for. But Qin Yin let out a whimper and gently pushed him away. She asked, "Big brother, what's wrong with you?" I also don't know." Lin Muyu was a little embarrassed. His face was completely red. "It feels like I've been drugged." Qin Yin frowned and said, "What's going on? We're eating the same thing." Lin Muyu let out a whimper. It was even more unbearable. At this moment, Tang Xiaoxi lay on her side in his arms. It was like a long drought meeting sweet dew. Tang Xiaoxi felt that she was being hugged in her sleep. She hurriedly opened her eyes and saw that it was Lin Muyu. It was a false alarm. Just as she was about to go back to sleep, Lin Muyu's scorching breath blew on her face. It was a little abnormal. "Ah." Tang Xiaoxi opened her eyes and looked at Lin Muyu's faintly red energy sea. She said, "My God. Mu's energy sea is expanding." "Why, Xiaoxi?" Qinin hurriedly asked. "I also don't know. Is it because of the Tao's meat?" Tang Xiaoxi's eyes widened. She said, "It must be. It is said that the Tao's meat is of the fire attribute, and it is very violent. After eating it, women can resist it with their purine body, but men can't. So men who eat the Tao's meat will quickly find a woman, that." She blushed and couldn't go on. Qinin looked at Lin Muyu's uncomfortable appearance and instantly blushed. She said, "Then what should we do, Xiaoxi? Or you have to help him." Tang Xiaoxi looked at her best friend and said with a smile, "All right, Xiaoyin, don't think too much. Although this kind of hot breath can be vented in that way, there are 10,000 other ways. So, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you, hee." Looking at Tang Xiaoxi, who was grinning mischievously, Qinin couldn't help but smile. She said, "What other way is there? Quickly try it. Brother, you look so uncomfortable." Tang Xiaoxi sat up and helped Lin Muyu up. With a wave of one hand, an indigo seal suddenly appeared in the palm of her hand. She pressed it on Lin Muyu's Qihai, mind-clearing incantation. Again, Lin Muyu's mind instantly became clear. After opening her eyes, she said faintly. Seeing that he was fine, Qinin also felt relieved. But before she had time to rejoice, her heart was in a mess. She asked, "Why did you say again?" This, Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi fell silent together. They turned their heads together and stared outside the tent like owls who had done something wrong. Chapter 467. After the 5th night watch period, the east was slowly turning bright. The sun was about to break through the horizon. The dawn in the dragon-searching forest was quiet. The forest in late autumn was filled with broken leaves. Among the dense shrubs, a male pheasant with golden feathers walked up to a shrub in a dignified manner. He raised his neck and screeched into the sky. Oh. After the chirp, it seemed to be very proud of itself. The feathers on its buttocks stood up. It took a deep breath and let out another long chirp. However, before the chirp stopped, there was a sound of wind behind it. A ferocious wolf pounced on it and bit the pheasant's neck into pieces. Blood gushed out, and the chirp stopped abruptly. Lin Muyu opened his sleepy eyes. He didn't know when, but Qinin and Tang Xiaoxi were sleeping soundly in his arms. He looked up at the sky in the distance and squinted his eyes. He was in a dilemma. He didn't know if he should get up and hurry on his way, or enjoy the warmth of the two beauties in his arms. At this moment, Qinin also woke up and asked, "What's wrong?" A pheasant chirped, but it stopped halfway. "I think it was murdered," Lin Muyu said lightly. Qinin sat up and rubbed her beautiful eyes. Then, she stroked her long hair and smiled at Lin Muyu in a dignified manner. She said sweetly, "Good morning, brother you." Lin Muyu didn't know how to answer. After a moment of silence, she said, "Good morning, Xiaoyin. By the way, after eating the swanee meat yesterday, how's your cultivation progress?" "It seems like my cultivation is growing very fast." Qinin opened her hands gently and silently circulated her strength. Immediately, the true dragon god binding chains appeared in her palms. In the next moment, rays of dazzling fighting energy began to spin. It was the starry fighting aura. Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. "Congratulations, Xiaoxi. You've stepped into the middle stage of the first heaven of the Saint Realm. This is the starry fighting aura." Qinin was pleasantly surprised. She smiled and said, "I can feel the strength in my body making a breakthrough as well." This trip to the Yunling Mountains was indeed very rewarding. On the side, Tang Xiaoxi slowly woke up and hugged Lin Muyu's left wrist. "The sky isn't completely bright yet. Are you sure you want to get up now?" Lin Muyu said, "We are hiding in the tent. No matter who they are in the dark and we are in the light. Xiaoxi, don't sleep so much. Get up quickly. Let's go back to Lanyan City as soon as possible. Xiaoyin has been away from Lanyan City for so many days. I don't know how Second Duke and Brother Feng are handling the political affairs." "All right." Lin Muyu opened the tent. There was a little fog in the jungle, but it was not very thick. She started to cook breakfast again. It was still swanee meat. Cultivating was the most important thing. This world was full of all kinds of dangers, and strength was the only way to prove the Tao. Otherwise, if she was not strong enough, no one would listen to her. After a full meal, she tidied up the tent, found 3 warhorses, and galloped out of the dragon-seeking forest. Sitting on the warhorse, she continued to cultivate. After refining the spiritual energy of the swanni meat in her stomach, Tang Xiaoxi would cast a mind-cleansing incantation on her when she felt hot. It seemed that Lin Muyu's cultivation would be inseparable from Tang Xiaoxi soon. At noon on the 7th day, the 3 of them had made great progress in their cultivation. After being replenished by the spiritual energy of the swanni meat, Tang Xiaoxi's advancement was the fastest. At noon, she had already cultivated her Firefox martial soul to 3 tails. She could be said to be the #1 person in the 7 Seas Tang sect. As for Qin Yin, she continued to cultivate her star jade dough light. In the afternoon, when Lin Muyu had circulated the forging dragon bone remnant scroll for an unknown number of times, the king's dough flame in his qi si became more and more red. Moreover, its intensity also became more and more vigorous. The strength in his body had clearly increased by a level. Needless to say, he had already broken through a small realm. From the initial stage of the Holy Grandmaster realm, he had broken through to the initial stage of the Holy Grandmaster realm. As this realm continued to increase, the power of the king's dough flame would also increase step by step to a new realm. When it was close to evening, a courier house appeared on the official road of the Tsangnan province. Qin Yin cheerfully said, "Many days of eating and sleeping in the open. Let's find a courier house to rest in today. And this is the place. It's already dark." All right. When the 3 of them arrived at the courier house, they saw a group of cavalry galloping towards them from afar. The leader was a man wearing the military insignia of captaincy. He looked to be around 40 years old, and had a masculine face. After dismounting from his horse, he said to the courier house worker, "Today we'll be booking all the rooms and stables in the courier house." Lin Muyu was taken aback. He urged his horse forward and cupped his fists, saying, "General, my 2 cousins and I have also come to this courier house. We've been eating and sleeping in the open for many days. Do you think you can lend us 2 rooms? Captaincy raised his eyebrows. When he saw that Lin Muyu was only an ordinary knight, he couldn't help but draw back the corners of his mouth and said, "Isn't it normal for you knight-errant knights to eat and drink in the open? I'm sorry, young man. We'll be booking the entire courier house for today. Here are 10 jinin coins. Consider it your compensation." This. Lin Muyu pushed away his money pouch and said, "General, we were obviously here first." The courier house worker saw that the situation wasn't looking good, and hurriedly stepped forward. He whispered into Lin Muyu's ear, "Young hero, you see, the arm is no match for the thigh. It's obvious that this military officer is a high-ranking official. Since he's already given you a way out of this embarrassing situation, don't be so unforgiving. Don't we come out to travel the pugilistic world for the sake of harmony and wealth?" Qin Yin, who was standing behind Lin Muyu, was unhappy. She slapped her horse forward and said, "Why should we give in to him? We want 2 rooms today. He has to give it to us even if he doesn't want to." It was obvious that this captaincy had never seen Qin Yin, the empress. The corner of his mouth immediately curled up and he sneered. "Where did this sharp-tongued little girl come from? Let me tell you, this is a courier house. It's a resting place prepared for the empire's high-ranking officials, nobles, and soldiers. You people who travel the pugilistic world should rest in the taverns in the countryside." Tang Xiaoxi came to Qin Yin's side and asked indifferently, "What's your name?" "What do you mean?" Captaincy narrowed his eyes and said, "Little girl, are you asking for my name? Do you think you're qualified to ask for my name?" Tang Xiaoxi took another look at his emblem and said, "You're from Tianji City in the 7 Seas province? Tell me, what's your name? By right, you should know me." "Haha, how interesting." Captaincy crossed his arms and said proudly, "My name is Lu Zhong, the military governor of Tianji City in the 7 Seas province. My title is Earl Tianji. Are you satisfied now?" Tang Xiaoxi reached into her bosom and took out a token. It was the Tang sect's iron token. She said, "Lu Zhong, do you recognize this?" Lu Zhong took a look and immediately got off his horse. He knelt on one knee respectfully and said, General Lu Zhong greets Princess Shi. It's good that you know. Tang Xiaoxi raised her eyebrows and said, Can you free up 2 rooms for us now? Yes, of course. Lu Zhong respectfully cupped his fists and stood up, saying, Princess. Why are you in Sangnan province? Logically speaking, shouldn't you stay in Lanyan City to help Her Highness manage the affairs? Tang Xiaoxi smiled slightly. No, my mission now is to come out and play with Her Highness. Ah. Lu Zhong was stunned. He looked at the noble young lady beside Tang Xiaoxi and couldn't help but tremble. For a moment, he felt that the world was about to collapse. He hurriedly knelt down and cupped his fists. I, Lu Zhong, deserve to die. Please forgive me, Your Highness. A group of captaincy and kiliarchs from Tianji City knelt down together. Hundreds of people knelt together and shouted, Long live Your Highness. Qinin frowned. She didn't intend to alarm so many people, so she raised her hand and said, You may rise. There's no need to stand on ceremony. All right, I'm tired. I'm going to rest. Yes. Lu Zhong nodded and said, I'll arrange a banquet to welcome Your Highness. As he spoke, Lu Zhong looked at Lin Muyu and said, Young hero, may I know who you are? Tang Xiaoxi smiled slightly. Who else would be accompanying Her Highness Qinin? Could it be? Lu Zhong hurriedly gave a standard military salute and said, I, Lu Zhong, pay my respects to Commander Yu. There's no need to be so polite. Go in and don't let anyone know about Her Highness's situation in Sangnan province. Do you understand, General Lu? Yes, I'll keep that in mind. Not long after, almost all the original guests in the post house had left. Lu Zhong arranged a very sumptuous meal in the lobby of the post house and invited Qinin, Tang Xiaoxi, and Lin Muyu to the banquet. Since they had to eat their fill, Lin Muyu didn't refuse. Only 5 people were qualified to eat with the Empress. Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi, Count of Tianji Lu Zhong, and his 2 sons, Lu Chong and Lu Shan. The candlelight swayed gently. Under Lin Muyu's spiritual pulse technique, Lu Zhong's cultivation was roughly at the peak of the first heaven of the heaven realm. He was already considered outstanding among the captaincy of the empire, and his cultivation was about the same as Wei Chou and Luo Yu. As for his 2 sons, Lu Chong was around 20 years old, and was at the first heaven of the earth realm. Lu Shan was at the 3rd heaven of the man realm. They weren't very strong, but they were considered good among the younger generation. Lu Zhong raised his cup and said respectfully, I'll punish myself with a cup of wine first. As he spoke, he drank it in one gulp and continued to look at Qinin respectfully, saying, I wonder why Your Highness, Princess Shi, and Commander Yu left Lanyan City and came to Sangnan province. Is it also for the heaven-grade weapon on the Cloud Ridge in Tianshu province? Qinin nodded and said, That's right. As she spoke, her pair of beautiful eyes flashed and disappeared. She asked in reply, I don't know why Uncle Tianji brought nearly 1,000 men and horses to Sangnan province with such a large force? Lu Zhong was a little ashamed and said, Actually, I also wanted to seize this heaven-grade weapon and offer it to Your Highness. I hope Your Highness won't blame me. Qinin said faintly, The local garrison generals are not allowed to leave the city without permission. I wonder if General is aware of this military law of the empire. I know, Your Highness, please calm down. Lu Zhong hurriedly retreated and knelt down, knocking his forehead heavily on the floor. It's all right. Qinin raised her hand and said, You may rise. I don't blame you. Bring your men back to Tianji City tomorrow morning, understand? That's where your duty lies. Yes, Your Highness. I will obey. Chapter 468. Late at night, a light drizzle fell from the sky. The cool drizzle drifted in through the window of the post house, and Lin Muyu stood there quietly with her stellar sword in her hand. It was another cloudy night, and there was no way for her to cultivate the stellar arts. Fortunately, she still had a piece of roasted swan and eye meat in her universe bag. After taking it out and chewing it carefully, she used the clear heart incantation taught by Tang Xiaoxi to resist the heat energy brought by the swan and eye meat. SSSS. An almost inaudible sound came from her meridians, and she could faintly see a fiery red aura moving in her meridians. That was the light of the king's fighting flame. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and continued to use the Dragon Forging Bone Remnant Scroll to refine the strength of her king's fighting flame. At the same time, she absorbed the spirit energy from the swan and eye meat to refine the intensity and purity of the king's fighting flame, making it even more powerful. Probably because the window was open, the bell-like laughter of Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin came from the room next door. It was late at night, but they still hadn't slept and were still laughing. After an unknown amount of time, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi's laughter became fainter and fainter. They had probably gone to sleep. Huff! Lin Muyu leisurely exhaled, and a faint flame flowed out of her mouth. This was the impure aura of the king's fighting flame. The king's fighting flame was formed by the cultivator's qi, and it was refined by gathering the spirit energy of the world. The ultimate goal of refining the king's fighting flame was to refine it to 100% purity and remove the impure aura. Obviously, Lin Muyu was still far from that. If she could really cultivate the king's fighting flame to 100% purity, her power would probably be comparable to the holy heaven realm Chu. She turned around and went back to her room, and her body felt a little hot. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Xiaochen silently recited the mantra for the cleansing heart incantation. The king's battle flame slowly flowed through his body, dispelling the burning sensation from Swan Ni's flesh. This cleansing heart incantation was indeed very useful. It was worthy of being one of the 7 Seas Tang sect's secret arts. Placing the star sword next to her pillow, Lin Muyu subconsciously released her spirit pulse art to sense her surroundings. Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin's auras were slowly decreasing. Once a cultivator fell asleep, their auras would also enter a dormant state, which made it very difficult for others to sense them. Aside from the 2 girls' auras, there were also the auras of Lu Zhong, Lu Chong, and Lu Shan, who had not fallen asleep yet. Quietly closing her eyes, Lin Muyu slowly fell asleep. However, the king's fighting flame in her body actually appeared on the surface of her body, along with the star arch Xian energy, forming a faint fiery red star lotus armor to protect its sleeping master. In the dream, the sound of iron hooves was very intense. Lin Muyu frowned and stood on the grass with a sharp sword in his hand. He was wearing a broken Imperial Guard armor, and was covered in blood. He roared, "Ah!" In the distance, the Iha nation's battle flag was flying in the air. Countless iron hooves spurred their horses and rushed over. There was even a general shouting, "The person who beheads Lin Muyu will be rewarded with 100,000 gold." The sound of iron hooves was dense. In the dream, Lin Muyu's arms were weak, and the battle chi in his body seemed to have been exhausted. "Come on!" He roared unwillingly and raised his arm. The 7 luminaries' Xian energy brought with it a blue starlight, and the 7 luminaries' stars' transformation whizzed out. However, the surging star power seemed to be too strong. It instantly swallowed his right arm, and his entire arm exploded, turning into a pile of flesh and blood. Ah! Lin Muyu knelt on the ground, and her eyes were already blood red. "You! Hurry up and leave!" A voice that hadn't been heard for a long time came from behind. It was Chu Huaying. He was wearing silver armor and a snow-white robe. He held a sword in his hand, and starlight flowed in his palm. The star-plucking finger landed heavily on the crowd, causing a group of Iha nation's iron hooves to howl in pain. Then Chu Huaying raised his sword and ordered loudly, "Flying Mount Battalion, follow me. Protect His Highness and Lin Muyu." The iron hooves from both sides clashed, and the entire sky was filled with blood. Pfft! No one knew who it was, but Chu Huaying's left arm was cut in half. Countless spears suddenly pierced through his handsome body, and blood stained his white robe. He fell from his horse and rolled into the mud. However, he still held onto his sword and shouted in a hoarse voice, "For the Empire, for His Highness, charge and kill." The black mass of Iha nation's iron hooves swept past, and Chu Huaying's body drifted away like a fallen leaf in the wind. Lin Muyu raised her head and looked at everything helplessly and angrily. She felt as if all the energy in her body had been sucked dry, and she roared like a wild beast, Don't kill him. You bastards, don't kill him." The scene suddenly changed. Lin Muyu was kneeling in a puddle of water. "Where is this? Brother Chu? Where's Brother Chu?" He looked around in a daze and tears filled his eyes. However, he saw a corpse floating in the puddle a few meters away. It was the radiant prince Qin Jin. At this moment, Qin Jin was lying quietly at the bottom of the puddle, his eyes wide open. There were many blood-red bruises on his neck, and the desolation sword in his hand had already been snatched away. Suddenly, a figure emerged from Qin Jin's body. He was still as dignified as before, but his gaze towards Lin Muyu was very gentle. He smiled faintly and said, You finally come to see me? Lin Muyu slowly stood up and looked at Qin Jin. Father has already left this world. Qin Jin looked deeply at him and said, I've been keeping a low profile all my life, thinking that I could make the empire stronger and more prosperous. However, I never thought that this would be the result. I've never treated you like a real father. You won't blame me, right? Lin Muyu's body trembled. She did not answer Qin Jin's question, but asked, Father, before you went to Fairy Lake, did you know that Qin would send people to kill you? So what if I knew? So what if I didn't? Qin Jin's eyes were filled with peace and tranquility. He smiled slightly and said, What will come will come. There's no escaping this. You're a strong child. I've always known that, and I also believe that you'll be able to accomplish great things. However, I can't stop worrying about Xiaoyin, and I can't stop worrying about my only daughter. Lin Muyu nodded and looked at the ripples on the surface of the water. It was unknown when it had started raining. He raised his head to look at Qin Jin and said, Father, I'll take good care of Xiaoyin and do my best to protect her. Qin Jin's spiritual body slowly flew forward and placed his palm on Lin Muyu's shoulder. His eyes were filled with kindness as he slowly raised his palm and caressed Lin Muyu's face, which had been carved by the hardships of time. 2 streams of tears slowly flowed down and splashed onto the surface of the water. Qin Jin, the king of light, was actually crying. He said tearfully, My son, you're the greatest pride of my life. I've let you down, so please don't blame me. Help me take good care of your younger sister, Xiaoyin. I've let the world down, and the only thing I can do is be a good father. I have to leave. You take care. As he spoke, Qin Jin's spiritual body turned into starlight and flew towards the heavenly river in the sky like a firefly. Lin Muyu slowly knelt down in the pool, and the tears in his eyes finally flowed out. He held onto his sharp sword with one hand and pressed his other hand into the mud, as if he was a knight on guard. He looked up at the sky and said, Father, rest in peace. I'll take good care of Xiaoyin. I'll also take back the world for you. Lin Muyu suddenly woke up from his dream. When he opened his eyes, it was already dawn. His cheeks were wet. He had actually cried in his dream. But today Lin Muyu was no longer the same as before. Weakness was like poison to him. He quickly raised his hand to wipe away his tears. How could Lin Muyu, one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, cry? But just as he raised his hand, Lin Muyu realized that the treasured sword of stars next to his pillow had disappeared without a trace. Oh my God! His body suddenly trembled. The treasured sword of stars was gone. He hurriedly turned over to look for it, but he still couldn't find any trace of the treasured sword of stars. He immediately became anxious. The treasured sword of stars was a first-grade sacred artifact, but the sword spirit of the treasured sword was his master, the sword elder. How could he let this sword be lost in his hands? He hurriedly put on his clothes and went out the door, only to find Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi walking towards him with breakfast in their hands. What's wrong, big brother you? Qin Yin asked in surprise. The treasured sword of stars has been stolen. Lin Muyu clenched her fist and said angrily, Someone actually stole the treasured sword of stars without anyone noticing. It's all my fault for being too careless. It can't be? Tang Xiaoxi's mouth opened wide. Moo, aren't you well versed in the spiritual pulse technique? With your ability, who could get so close to you without anyone noticing? I don't know either. Hurry up and find it. Okay. The 2 girls didn't care about eating anymore. Qin Yin directly went downstairs and shouted, Lu Zhong. Uncle Tianji, who was dressed in iron armor, was about to go out. He hurriedly turned around and cupped his fists respectfully. Your Highness, please give me your orders. Commander Yu's treasured sword of stars has been lost. Immediately gather your men and search the entire post house. Find it for me. Yes. Lu Zhong's face was filled with shock. May I ask your highness the treasured sword of stars? A substandard divine artifact. It's a divine artifact that fell from the heaven realm on the cloud ridge. Oh my god. Lu Zhong was shocked. I'll send people to find it now. Good. If you can find it, you will be rewarded handsomely. Yes. Lin Muyu squinted her eyes and looked at Lu Zhong's group. She slowly activated the spiritual pulse technique. The range of detection was getting bigger and bigger. However, she couldn't sense the slightest aura of the treasured sword within a mile. She continued to inject her king's battle flame into the spiritual pulse technique and extended the detection radius. 2 miles. 3 miles. 4 miles. 5 miles. 6 miles. When the spiritual pulse technique extended to 10 miles, it was already the limit of the strength of Lin Muyu's soul. However, at this moment, a familiar fluctuation suddenly appeared in the spiritual pulse technique. It was the sword soul power of the treasured sword of stars. Found it. Lin Muyu clapped her hands and said, Xiaoyin, the treasured sword of stars is in the west. It's in the direction of Lanyan City. Let's chase after it. I want to see who has the guts to steal my things. Okay. It was still drizzling in the morning. The three of them put on their straw raincoats and got on their horses. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the misty rain. Outside the post house, Lu Zhong, Lu Chong, and Lu Shan respectfully sent the Empress off. When the three of them were far away, Lu Chong raised his head and a glint flashed across his eyes. Lu Chong asked, Father, is that treasured sword of stars really a divine artifact? Her Highness said it's a substandard divine artifact. It's even higher than a holy divine artifact. It's one of a kind in this realm. Lu Zhong's eyes were filled with excitement. He lowered his voice and said, Chonger, how strong are the people you sent? Will they be captured by Lin Muyu? He's a holy king who has the king's battle flame. Absolutely not. Lu Chong said confidently. Chapter 469. Tuck, tuck, tuck. The sound of hooves beating on the muddy ground could be heard. The 3 war horses were all fine horses of the endless forest, so their bodies were relatively heavy. Their hooves kicked up the mud on the official road as they galloped forward like 3 bolts of lightning. Riding on the warhorse, Lin Muyu concentrated the power of her soul, and soon found the aura of the sword soul again. Perhaps the person who stole the sword would not have thought that he could find the sword by relying on the location of the sword soul. Treading on the snow, she was getting closer and closer. In the blink of an eye, she was less than a mile away from the thief. At this time the rain had stopped. Looking from afar, a man in black tights was galloping on the official road. Unfortunately, his horse was not as majestic as Lin Muyu's and the others, and he was about to be caught up. Suddenly, he looked back and couldn't help but tremble when he saw Lin Muyu. And Lin Muyu also saw clearly that the long sword on the back of this man was Xing Chun. How dare he steal it from me? Lin Muyu was a little sad and indignant. She was the Grand Deacon of the Holy Temple of the Empire, and was also praised by Qin Yin as the strongest person under the age of 30 in the Empire. Now her long sword was stolen from her room. It was a great shame. Seeing that the warhorse could not outrun her, the thief immediately pulled the reins and led the warhorse to the side of the forest. Walala! This was a forest full of bushes and thorns. The horse was quickly stabbed and cried out in pain. When Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi arrived, they only saw the neck of the horse full of blood. It stood there swinging its tail, and the person had disappeared. What a fast movement! What kind of lightness skill was that? Lin Muyu quickly turned over and dismounted from the horse. She turned around and said, I will chase him with falling star steps. Xiaoyin, Xiaoxi, you two lead the horse and wait for me here. I will come back after I catch up with him. Well, brother, you, be careful. Be careful, Mu. The 2 girls looked up at the same time. They also knew that they could not catch up with Lin Muyu in the forest. Moreover, the thief seemed to have extraordinary skills. Even if they caught up with him, he would only be a burden to Lin Muyu. Swoosh, stepping on the astral light. Lin Muyu disappeared into the forest like a shadow. Her king's battle flame was slowly rising. Using the spirit pulse spell, she locked onto the thief's position. When Lin Muyu suddenly passed through the broad-leaved forest, She saw that the thief was only a few hundred meters away from her. His running speed was frighteningly fast. His legs were running as if he was flying. Stepping on the grass and leaves, she could faintly see the light of battle chi surrounding his body. Damn, he's a heaven realm warrior. There are really many extraordinary people in this continent. Lin Muyu sprinted with all her might. Her speed had already been raised to the limit. Her falling star steps swept through the forest like a meteor falling to the ground. At the same time, she let out popping sounds as if she was flying. However, the thief's speed did not seem to be inferior. He carried the star's sword on his back and continued to run. His feet were surrounded by a dense wind-type fighting energy. Every step he took seemed to be using a mystic technique that could shrink the ground to inches. Although it was a distance of tens of meters, he was able to cover it in a single leap. His body was like a phantom and was very mysterious. What kind of damn qinggong is this? Lin Muyu was a little speechless. Ever since she came to the Shattered Cauldron realm, this was the first time she saw someone who could beat her falling star steps in qinggong. This person was really not simple. Moreover, even at such a close distance, Lin Muyu's star steps couldn't sense the thief's aura at all. It was as if the thief's aura was completely concealed. In the end, Lin Muyu chased with all her might. The thief also ran with all his might. One in front, one behind. No one could catch up, and no one could escape. Just like that, they passed through the mountain road at the side of the official road. After running for nearly 20 kilometers, the thief finally showed a trace of fatigue. The distance between the two was getting closer. Presumably, his qinggong also consumed a lot of fighting energy. His fighting energy was obviously not as vigorous and long as Lin Muyu's king fighting flame. He lost in terms of cultivation. Swoosh! The thief suddenly stopped running. He raised his hand and pulled out the star's sword. He roared angrily. Bastard, why are you chasing me so hard? The star's sword was full of fighting energy. The power of a divine weapon could not be underestimated. At this moment, Lin Muyu couldn't take it head-on with her bare hands. She suddenly spun her body and dodged the star's sword slash with her butterfly steps. Her arm moved smoothly and the back of her hand, which was full of king fighting flame, lightly hit the thief's back. Bang! The battle armor shattered instantly. She never expected that the thief was actually a heavenly king. But obviously, the heavenly king's strength was inferior to the holy king's by 3 realms. He wasn't a match for him at all. Lin Muyu's casual attack directly caused him to vomit blood. Damn it! The thief flew into a rage out of humiliation. He turned around and swept out a second attack. Lin Muyu didn't even use the pressure of her holy realm to suppress him. Instead, she wanted to test the thief's skills. She suddenly leaned back and did a metal bridge. At the same time, she raised her boot and kicked the thief's wrist with her king fighting flame. The thief reacted very quickly. He turned his wrist and twisted the blade of his sword in the air. He turned around and slashed at Lin Muyu's foot. How could this be? Lin Muyu immediately activated the 7 luminaries' Holy Gourd's ability, Dragon Blood Shield. In the next moment, the star's sword struck the Dragon Blood Shield and rebounded with a clang. Lin Muyu took advantage of this opportunity to open her palm. Strands of astral power appeared and wrapped around the blade of the star's sword. She suddenly pulled it back. Return it to me. The strength of a holy king was so powerful that she directly dragged the thief and the sword back. Buzz, buzz, a golden gourd wall disintegrated into countless golden armor leaves and wrapped around Lin Muyu's 5 fingers. The golden steel palm grabbed the blade of the star's sword and quickly snatched it away. At the same time, she raised her battle knee and slammed 10% of her king fighting flame into the thief's abdomen. Arg! The thief spat out another mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. His body spasmed and he was about to be crippled. Lin Muyu sheathed the star's sword and went up to the thief's face mask. She found that it was a young man around 25 years old. His eyes were filled with anger. Who are you? I will never change my name or my surname. He slowly sat up, his eyes filled with pride as he said, I am Baiyin. Baiyin? I don't know you. Lin Muyu shook her head. You. Baiyin was furious. He felt that his pride had been hurt. You don't even know the famous thief Saint Baiyin. How dare you live in Jianghu? Humph, what a joke. You're the joke. Lin Muyu smiled with an imposing manner. Do you know who I am? Who are you? Do you know Lin Muyu? You're Lin Muyu. Bai Yin couldn't help but laugh out loud. If you're the famous General Lin Muyu, then I'm the reincarnation of the god of war, Xiang Wentian. I can't explain it to you. Lin Muyu went up and slapped the back of Bai Yin's head, knocking him out. She put him under her armpit and used falling star steps to go back. She returned to where she was in less than an hour. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi were waiting anxiously. When they saw Lin Muyu come back, they went up to greet her. You caught him? Yes. Lin Muyu threw the thief to the ground and said, This is the person who stole the stellar sword. He's quite skilled and calls himself the thief Saint Bai Yin. I've never heard of him before. Ah. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. Silly Mu, you're so focused on the empire's military affairs that you don't know about the rumors in Jianghu. This thief Saint Bai Yin is a famous figure in Jianghu. Oh, how famous is he? Lin Muyu asked. Qin Yin, who was at the side, was also waiting for Tang Xiaoxi's reply with her eyes wide open. It was clear that she lived in Zetian Palace every day and didn't have the time to listen to the rumors in Jianghu. Tang Xiaoxi said, Thief Saint Bai Yin, 27 or 28 years old, can be said to be a legend of a generation. It said that he studied under the thief god Zhuge Xing when he was very young. He was struck by lightning when he was young, but he didn't die. Instead, he obtained an extraordinary cultivation. He followed Zhuge Xing and practiced the turtle breathing technique, absolute step, Yangshan art, and other secret art since he was young. He can take things from a distance and become invisible like a shadow. There's such a thing. Lin Muyu looked at the unconscious Bai Yin on the ground and said, Humph, didn't I still easily knock him out? Tang Xiaoxi tilted her head and looked at her proud expression. She couldn't help but smile affectionately. Silly Mu, do you think everyone has your mysterious encounters and almost abnormal cultivation speed? If you didn't exist in this world, Bai Yin might be the strongest person in the younger generation. That's true. Lin Muyu nodded. Bai Yin had the cultivation of a heavenly king at the age of 27, while Xiang Yu had only stepped into the heavenly king realm at the age of 31. This meant that Bai Yin's strength was already firmly above Xiang Yu's, but slightly inferior to Feng Jixing's. Now, how does Big Brother you plan to deal with this thief saint? Qin Yin asked with a smile. Lin Muyu muttered to herself and said, I can't let this brat go around stealing things. Since he fell into my hands today, I will tame him and make him serve the empire. Xiao Yin, confer him an official title. How about it? All right, I'll listen to you. Splash. The water in the water bag splashed onto Bai Yin's face. He woke up with a start and said angrily, Stinking B****, let me go if you have the guts. I want to fight 300 rounds with you and decide who's the stronger. I didn't tie you up. Lin Muyu stood majestically. The fighting flame on her body slowly spun, and the pressure of the sacred lingered around, causing Bai Yin to feel a chill from the bottom of his heart. This was Lin Muyu's true strength, an ability that completely surpassed the heaven realm. It could be said that with Bai Yin's current cultivation, Lin Muyu could fight 10 of him. I'm not feeling well today. I'll beat you up another day, Bai Yin said, unconvinced. Bai Yin, you stole the sword of the commander of the Empire's Longdan army camp, Lin Muyu. Do you know your crime? To the side, Qin Yin's pretty face was cold as she spoke with authority. This kind of presence was not something a normal woman could have. Chapter 470. He's Lin Muyu, one of the 4 heroes of Lan Yan? Ha ha ha, don't lie to me. I'm not well educated. Bai Yin suddenly burst into laughter as if Qin Yin's words were the funniest joke in the world. Qin Yin did not get angry. Instead, she smiled faintly and said, Brother Yu, show him your general seal. Okay. Lin Muyu took out the general seal from her qiankuan pouch and slowly lifted it up. The words General Seal were engraved on the bottom of the golden seal. Looking at the shocked Bai Yin, Lin Muyu asked, Do you believe me now? I. Bai Yin looked a little uneasy. He sat there not knowing what to do. Tang Xiaoxi bent down and looked at his face. She smiled and said, Boy, do you know who the beauty who spoke to you just now is? Who is she? Who is the ruler of the empire today? Her Majesty Qin. Who is the woman who can control General Lin Muyu? Tang Xiaoxi reminded him with a smile. I heard it's Princess Tang Xiaoxi. Bai Yin grinned. Tang Xiaoxi's face immediately turned red. She said happily, You really know how to chat. Xiaoxi, what are you talking about? Qin Yin was speechless. Tang Xiaoxi immediately put on a serious face and said, Bai Yin, you have offended Her Majesty. Don't you know your crime? Bai Yin was stunned. He carefully looked at Qin Yin and realized that this beauty was indeed the most beautiful woman in the world. Then he looked at the way she spoke and the way she dressed. Suddenly, he seemed to understand everything. He hurriedly got up, knelt on the ground and said, Commoner Bai Yin pays respect to Your Majesty. Get up. Qin Yin smiled and said, You've stolen countless things in your life, so you must have collected a lot of good things. However, you are still a thief, and according to the imperial law, you should be executed. However, just now, Commander Yu pleaded for you and begged me to spare you from the death penalty. Do you think I should spare your life? Bai Yin hurriedly knelt down again and kowtowed repeatedly. Your Majesty, please spare my life. This commoner knows his mistake. This commoner knows his mistake. That depends on how Commander Yu plans to deal with you. Qin Yin smiled with dimples. Bai Yin looked at Lin Muyu and suddenly felt a wave of sorrow. He felt that there was no hope left in this life. Originally, with his outstanding cultivation, he would have no problem moving unhindered across the mainland. However, there would always be someone stronger than him. Unfortunately, he had encountered Lin Muyu in Sangnan province, a fellow with an abnormally strong cultivation. He couldn't beat her, nor could he run away. What else could he do? In desperation, Bai Yin cupped his fists and said, Please deal with me, Commander Yu. Lin Muyu leaned on the star sword and said, Bai Yin, you have been a thief all your life. Do you feel that in the end, there is no meaning in stealing? Money is like dung. No matter what kind of treasure it is, it's just an external possession. You can't bring it with you when you're alive, and you can't bring it with you when you're dead. Commander Yu is right. Now I'll give you a chance. Are you willing to serve the Empress, Her Highness Qin Yin? Lin Muyu looked at him deeply. The star's sword in her hand was surrounded by a strong imperial fighting flame. Her intention couldn't be more obvious. If you dare to disagree, I'll beat you up. Bai Yin shuddered and said, Even though I, Bai Yin, live in the underworld, I'm still a citizen of the Empire. I'm willing to serve the Empress. Very well. Lin Muyu smiled brightly. On behalf of the Empress, I accept your loyalty. From now on, you will work for Zetian Palace. At the same time, you will also be a member of the Longdan army camp. You will listen to all my orders. Are you willing? I'm willing to follow you, Commander Yu. Bai Yin had no choice but to agree. Lin Muyu continued, For the time being, the Longdan army camp doesn't have a title for you. You will be my personal bodyguard. Also, we need to set 3 rules. What do you mean by 3 rules? First, you are not allowed to steal in the future. You are not allowed to steal even 1 copper coin. The soldiers of the Empire will not steal. Yes. Second, you must always be loyal to the Empire. You cannot betray it. Otherwise, you will be struck by lightning. Yes. Third, hand over the 7 space bags tied around your waist. These are the things you stole. They must be confiscated and directly put into the military warehouse of the Longdan army camp. Ah. For a moment, Bai Yin felt as if he had boarded a pirate ship. Commander, didn't you say that money is like dirt? Why must you ask for my personal property? To you money is like dirt, but to me it's different. This money can be used to fund the military supplies of the Longdan army camp. Lin Muyu played with the hilt of the star's sword with a bright smile on her face. She was extremely handsome and looked like a rogue commander. She smiled and said, You must abide by these 3 rules. However, we pay attention to human rights. It's fine if you don't agree, but I will tie you up and bring you back to Lanyan City. You will be executed on the streets. All the space bags will still be mine. How about it? This is a chance for you to turn over a new leaf. Make your own choice. Bai Yin wailed in his heart. Like a warrior who had broken his wrist, he removed the space bag from his waist and handed it over. Commander, can you leave one for me? No way. Do you think this is a market where you can bargain? The empire's laws are dignified and cannot be blasphemed. A certain someone acted righteously, but at the same time, he happily took all the interspatial bags. He opened one of them and took a look. When he saw the sparkling treasures, he was so furious that he almost could not close his mouth. He said bitterly, "There are so many great treasures. How worried must the owners be? Bain, when you stole these treasures, did you ever think about the pain the owners had to go through?" "I've thought about it. I know I was wrong." Bain felt that his heart had been hollowed out by this legendary hero-level commander, who had repelled the demons. However, this person in front of him didn't look like a hero of the empire, but more like a street vendor. Bain felt even more bitter when he thought about the treasures in the 7 space bags. Tang Xiaoxi checked the treasures in the space bags one by one and finally said softly, "This guy is really a thief. All the treasures here add up to at least 10 million Jin coins. Otherwise, why would he be called the Holy Pirate?" Jin said with a smile. Lin Muyu tied the 7 space bags to her waist one after another and said, "Your Highness Xiaoyin, I request that these treasures be given to the Xian Flower Chamber of Commerce for sale. All the treasures will be used to supply the Longdan Army camp's equipment and military supplies, as well as the Ministry of Works research on weapons." "Alright, it's approved." Qin smiled as she enjoyed the success. Lin Muyu walked forward and patted Bain. She looked at his pained expression and said, "When you return to Lanyan City, you'll be one of the soldiers in the Longdan Army camp. At the same time, you'll also be a member of the Empire's army. You must remember the glory of being an Empire soldier, understand?" "Yes, Lord Commander." Bain felt as if a knife was twisting in his heart as he looked at the young and handsome commander. He carefully asked, "There are some scattered Jin coins in the 7th bag. Can you give me some to pay for the wine?" "Don't worry, the Longdan Army camp will provide a monthly salary. It's enough for you to drink." "Yes. Don't steal anymore or I'll beat you up." "Yes, Commander. I'll keep that in mind. Let's go." "Yes." Lin Muyu was in a good mood as she continued her journey back. She hummed a tune as she cultivated. Although her stellar sword was almost stolen, she had recovered it after losing it. Furthermore, she had gained the loyalty of the world's #1 thief, Bain. Furthermore, she had received 10 million Jin coins worth of treasures as a gift. This trip to Dubhe province could be considered a huge gain. "Oh yes, Bain, I have a question for you." Lin Muyu suddenly remembered something. "Please ask, Commander," Bain said respectfully. He wore the military insignia of the Imperial Army that Lin Muyu had bestowed upon him. Behind the purple flower were 2 bronze 6-pointed stars, which was the military insignia of the Imperial Army. Although it was only a 10-man squad leader, Bain felt an inexplicable sense of belonging. He actually felt happy. Although he kept scolding himself for being stupid for spending 10 million on a 10-man squad leader, this feeling of happiness only increased. It was simply killing him. Lin Muyu said, "How did you know that the star's sword was with me? And how did you know that I was staying in that hostel? Did someone tip you off?" "No one tipped me off," Bain said. "It's just that I was hired by someone. As long as I stole the star's sword, the other party promised to give me 5 million Jin coins. 5 million? What a huge sum. Who is it?" This subordinate can't say. After all, this subordinate was just a hired thief, so I can't go back on my word. I hope that Lord Commander won't make things difficult for me." Bain cupped his fists and said very respectfully but also very seriously. Lin Muyu nodded. "It's fine. You can tell me in a roundabout way. Don't forget that you are now a soldier of the Imperial Army. This is your duty." "Yes, this subordinate can't tell Commander who hired me, but I can tell Commander that he is stationed in Tianji City." As expected, Lin Muyu and Qin looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Lu Zhong, the Count of Tianji, seemed to be loyal, but in reality, he was outwardly obedient but inwardly opposed. He actually sent someone to steal the star's sword. How gutsy was he? Lu Zhong, this bastard. It looks like he won't be able to hold on to the title of Count of Tianji for long, Qin said with some anger. Lin Muyu said, "Xiaoyin, Don't be in a hurry to take down Count of Tianji. The powers in the Seven Seas province are too complicated. If we're not careful, we'll be implicated. Regarding the Seven Seas province, we should consult Xiaoxi first. Qin nodded lightly and looked at Tang Xiaoxi with a gentle gaze. Tang Xiaoxi's starry eyes looked towards the northeast. That was the direction of the Seven Seas province. She said softly, "The powers and families in the Seven Seas province are indeed very complicated. Count of Tianji is only one of the 7 vassals. He controls about 30,000 soldiers. There are 6 other vassals, all of whom are grandfather's trusted aides. These vassals all have family ties with each other. Some are even in-laws. What Mu said is right. Grandfather's military power is almost all distributed to these 7 vassals. As long as the 7 vassals have the intention to rebel, I'm afraid grandfather can't do anything about it. We need to take it slow." As she said this, she looked at Qin Yin apologetically. "I'm sorry, Xiao Yin. The Tang family's huge military power in the Seven Seas province has worried you." "It's okay, Xiaoxi." Qin Yin smiled gently. "I won't touch Lu Zhong for now. Let's go back to Lanyan City first." Chapter 471. 3 days later, they arrived at Lanyan City. They entered the city in disguise. When Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi arrived at Zetian Palace Hall, Qin Yan was on duty and immediately recognized them. He went forward, knelt on the ground and said, "Commander of the Imperial Guards Qin Yan pays his respects to your highness." Qin Yin smiled and nodded. "Please rise, Commander Qin Yan." At this moment, Bai Yin was sure that this group of people were the ones in power in the Qin Empire. At the same time, he was even more in awe of Lin Muyu. This ruthless and vicious person was definitely not the righteous hero in the legends. Lin Muyu was still deep in thought. She only came back to her senses after Qin Yan called her big brother. She smiled and said, "Let's not talk so much. Send Her Highness back to Zetian Palace Hall. She needs a good rest and a hot bath." "Yes." In front, a group of imperial guards dressed in bright armor stood on both sides, protecting the empress. However, before Qin Yin put on the empress's robe, she still maintained the demeanor of a little girl. She secretly held onto Lin Muyu's arm and said coquettishly, "Brother Yu." "What's the matter, Xiao Yin?" Lin Muyu lowered her head and smiled at her. "What were you thinking about along the way? You ignored me and Xiaoxi." Qin Yin asked a question that she hadn't asked for a long time. Lin Muyu thought for a while and said, "I was thinking about the star's sword. This star's sword was obviously taken away by Luolan from the Sword Elder when he massacred Lanyan City. It should be in Lingnan. Why did it fall from the heaven realm? There must be a reason for this." Qin Yin was stunned. "Are you saying that Luolan ascended in the past few years? Or, Luolan is no longer in the 7 world palaces, but has already ascended?" Lin Muyu couldn't help but sneer. Don't say that I look down on him. With Luolan's cultivation, he's not even fit to carry the shoes of the gods when he ascends to the heaven realm. Moreover, he offended the 7 luminaries demon emperor. So he doesn't have the guts to ascend to the heaven realm. Then what could it be? I suspect that this sword was offered to a god in the heavenly realm by Lauren, and then she fell for some reason. As for why she fell, I don't know, but this is the most reliable deduction. Qin Yin nodded and pondered for a moment before saying, "If that's the case, then Roland has already made contact with the heaven realm. Brother Yu, do you want to try and contact the demon emperor?" "There's nothing I can do about it. The distance between the mortal realm and the heaven realm is too great. I can't even send my thoughts to the heaven realm. After all, my cultivation is limited. I can only wait for the demon emperor to come find me. However, the demon emperor won't come find me unless it's something very important. Activating the divine oracle consumes divine power. Then we can only wait and see." "Yes, that's the only way. In any case, you and Xiaoxi have to increase your cultivation." "Yes, I got it." After the banquet, Qin Yin took a bath and changed her clothes. Wearing the empress's long dress, she slowly walked over. Her delicate and jade-like face was glistening under the candlelight. Her entire person seemed to be radiating in all directions. She was so beautiful that Lin Muyu couldn't help but be stunned when he saw her. What's the matter? Qinyin looked at his stupefied look and giggled, but her heart was as sweet as honey. Lin Muyu hurriedly lowered his head in shame. Qin Yan, Feng Jixing, and Wei Chou were still at the side. Staring at the Empress's face like this was actually already blasphemy against her authority. However, Feng Jixing and Qin Yan were also staring at Qin Yin. This couldn't be helped. Men's nature was like this. Moreover, Qin Yan's beauty was indeed unrivaled in the present age. There was nothing wrong with taking another look. Qin Yin unhurriedly held onto Lin Muyu's arm and said, "Let's go. We should go to the ancestor to receive the examination. General Feng, please take care of the imperial capital's surrounding defenses. Commander Qin Yan, please ensure the safety of Zetian Palace Hall. Deputy Commander Wei Chou, be in charge of the Longdan Army camp's training, as well as the daily necessities of the Savage Tribe's army." "Yes, Your Highness." The three generals cupped their fists in unison. Meanwhile, Lin Muyu brought Qin Yin straight to Yangxin Pavilion. Bai Yin became Lin Muyu's personal bodyguard. He changed into a set of Imperial Guard armor and followed closely behind, standing guard outside Yangxin Pavilion's door. When Lin Muyu knocked on the door, she saw Qin Han sitting there cultivating with rainbow-colored divine radiance. Without opening his eyes, he smiled and said, "You two are finally back? Greetings, ancestor." Both of them knelt down in unison. Qin Han opened his eyes and said with a smile, "You actually stepped into the Holy King realm. What a surprise. Is the martial soul fusion cultivation complete?" "It's completed, ancestor," Lin Muyu said respectfully. "Good, take it out and let ancestor take a look." "Yes." Lin Muyu stood up and took a few steps back. With a low grunt, the two martial souls broke out of her body. The 10 god-binding chains rotated rapidly and broke down into golden metal pieces. Then with a dang-dang-dang sound they combined together. In the blink of an eye, a golden greatsword appeared in Lin Muyu's palm. At the same time, the 7 luminaries' celestial gourd was also broken down, turning into engraved runes and life energy that flowed into the greatsword. Lin Muyu lightly swung her arm, and suddenly, the greatsword martial soul was surrounded by a majestic aura. "Good." Qin Han's eyes brightened. "Good boy, you really did not disappoint me. Your martial soul fusion rate is close to 70%, no less than ancestors. If you continue to cultivate, I'm afraid your martial soul fusion rate will be higher than mine. The younger generation will surpass us in time. Have you named your martial soul after the fusion? Ancestor's martial soul is called 8 Desolate Godly Sword. What is your sword type martial soul called?" Lin Muyu said. "It's called Great Treasure Sword." "Ah." Qin Han was so shocked that he almost fell off his chair. Such an arrogant and casual name. Qin Yin giggled. "I also think this name is too casual. If ancestor is willing, why don't you name it for Big Brother Yu's new martial soul?" "Okay." Qin Han felt the majestic energy in the sword-type martial soul and said, "The sword contains 7 stars, and the immortal energy is dense. I think we should call it the 7 Luminaries Celestial Sword. What do you think, you?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded. "I will have someone record the 7 Luminaries Celestial Sword and Ancestors' 8 Desolate Godly Sword into the Empire's Book of Souls." "Okay." Qin Han looked at Qin Yin and smiled. "Xiao Yin, it seems like your cultivation has improved a lot. Come, summon your martial soul. Let ancestor see how much you've improved." "Yes." Qin Yin let out a delicate cry. Immediately, 9 golden true dragon god-binding chains encircled her elegant body. Each of the chains was like a swimming dragon, and each of them was filled with starlight. They looked extremely dazzling. "Not bad." Qin Han nodded. "Your cultivation has improved a lot, but it's still not fast enough. At this speed, you'll need at least 100 years to step into the God realm. You can wait, but you can't. That kid will step into the God realm in 10 years, and in 100 years, he'll be able to form a complete God Emperor Godhead." "Wow." Lin Muyu was surprised. "Am I that strong?" Qin Han smiled. "If the ancestor says you're strong, then you're strong. Alright, the ancestor needs to rest for a while. You can leave, but remember to follow the method I taught you, and continue to cultivate." Yes, ancestor. Bai Yin was still standing guard outside the door, and he asked respectfully, Commander, where are we going now? Back to the Holy Temple. I'll arrange a room for you. Yes. Just as they were about to leave, Lin Muyu halted her steps. Looking at the row of immortal crane palace lanterns outside the heart-nurturing pavilion, her eyes narrowed. I remember that the eyes of these immortal crane palace lanterns are inlaid with gems. Bai Yin, you bastard, in just a few minutes you took away all these gems. Bai Yin hurried to explain, Commander, it was definitely not this subordinate's doing. Ah. You still dare to say it? Lin Muyu's gaze turned frosty, and her king-level battle flame soared. If you don't hand them over, I'll make a move. Bai Yin's face was ashen as he opened his palm, and the 24 black gems were stacked together. He said awkwardly, Commander, please forgive me, it's an occupational disease. I can't change it in a short time. I couldn't control myself just now. Lin Muyu took all the black gems and turned to Qin Yin. I'm really sorry, this guard is too embarrassing. Qin Yin smiled. It's fine, take your time to change. Lin Muyu turned around and glared at Bai Yin. The next time you do it, I won't let you off so easily. As she spoke, she casually threw the 24 black gems into her pocket. They were all precious treasures that could be auctioned for a high price. Brother Yu. Qin Yin held his hand affectionately, opened her palm, and said with a smile, Hand them over. These black gems are very rare, and have the effect of prolonging one's life. That's why they were placed in the residence of the ancestor. There aren't many of them in the world, and I can't gather all 24 of them anymore. Aha, all right then. A certain someone shamelessly gave 21 black gems to Qin Yin, and he wouldn't spit out the remaining 3 no matter how much he wanted them. Bai Yin was dumbstruck as he watched from the side. He never imagined that someone would dare to act shamelessly in front of the Empress. Late at night, the temple deacon's office was brightly lit. The 4 generals, Situ Sun, Situ Shui, Wei Chou, and Feng Shi, stood on both sides, waiting respectfully for the commander to return and issue his first order. Lin Muyu, on the other hand, had been reading a pile of files for a long time. Finally, she raised her head and looked at everyone. Situ Shui immediately smiled sweetly and asked, Commander, what order do you have? Let's have a lamb hot pot supper later. He said something that made everyone spit out rice. Wei Chou couldn't help but laugh and said, Lamb hot pot is indeed very important, but Miss Jean Xiaotang from the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce has been waiting outside for the time it takes for a joss stick to burn. Should we let her in? And quickly. Yes. Half a minute later, Jean Xiaotang walked in with a sullen look on her face. Brother Yu is so busy that he doesn't even have time to care about me. How can that be? Lin Muyu smiled and said, Xiaotang, come over here. I have some treasures that I need to sell at the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce. Oh, what is it? Lin Muyu took out Bai Yin's 7 spatial lists. Jean Xiaotang was stunned for a moment before her pretty face was filled with a smile of joy. I'm rich. I'm rich, the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce is rich. Haha, of course. Lin Muyu smiled knowingly. However, Bai Yin still felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. He coughed and said, Commander. All right, there's no need to say anything else. In 3 days, you will be promoted to Chiliarch and rewarded with a gold military badge. Thank you, Commander. Bai Yin cupped his fists, his face full of gratitude. This fellow was truly an official fanatic. Late at night, after inviting Chu Yao from the Spiritual Medicine Division to have supper with a group of generals from the Longdan army camp, it was time for Lin Muyu to get busy. That's right, Swanni's spine was filled with high-purity godly metal. This batch of godly metal was enough to forge many godly weapons. Chapter 472. Wang. The cauldron turned into a golden screen of light and appeared in the chief attendant's office. Wei Chou, Chu Yao, and the others had already left, so Lin Muyu immediately took out the cauldron and got down to business. Rustle. The cosmos sack's mouth was pushed wide open, and a 5-meter-long Bai Yan's spine was forcibly pulled out. However, it was too long, and the crafting cauldron could not contain it. Thus she raised her hand and swung it down. The sharp stellar sword directly split the spine into 3 parts. After that, Lin Muyu gently raised her palm, and an invisible force field sent the 3 parts of the spine into the crafting cauldron. The 7th layer, flame refinement. Stellar flames surged continuously in the cauldron, rapidly burning the pieces of Swan Ni's skeleton. However, the Swan Eye itself was of the fire attribute, so it took Lin Muyu almost half an hour to refine the bones before they slowly turned red. At this time, with a hissing sound, a liquid with a metallic luster flowed out from where the spinal cord should be. As expected, the Swan Ni's spine was filled with godly metal. Lin Muyu slowly opened her palm and controlled the strands of godly metal. Not long after, the 3 pieces of bones were completely refined into dust, while the godly metal turned into a fiery red liquid that boiled violently in the cauldron. The purity of the godly metal liquid was still not high enough. After refining for a while, she only obtained about 40 gene of godly metal. It was time. He reached into his cosmos sack and found the 400-year-old Biden spirit stone. This was an unparalleled spirit stone, and it could be said to be a priceless treasure. However, Lin Muyu still had to refine it today. After all, she would be able to absorb a certain amount of spirit energy in the process to raise her cultivation. Moreover, weapon forging was a kind of cultivation in itself, so she couldn't slack off. More importantly, there was always a knot in Lin Muyu's heart. That was the former Emperor Qin Jin's Desolation Sword, which was originally a national treasure, the Emperor's Blade. Now it had fallen into the hands of a despicable person like Qin Yi, so Lin Muyu had to forge an even more powerful weapon. As the Emperor's Blade of the Empire, Qin Yin's purpling sword was still far from enough. With a shake of her arm, the spirit stone flew into the cauldron. However, before Lin Muyu could start refining it, the spirit stone had already transformed into a Swan Eye star and pounced towards her. Fortunately, Lin Muyu was already prepared. She pushed out with both palms, and the king's battle flame, first appearance of starlight, directly smashed into the Swan Eye star. With a loud bang, the Swan Eye wailed miserably as it flew back into the cauldron. At the same time, Lin Muyu's arms went numb from the impact. The Swan Eye was simply too strong. Even after its death, the spirit energy it left behind was still so strong. The star flame smelting flame slowly circled around the spirit stone, burning fiercely. Not long after, the spirit stone turned even redder. Right at this moment, another furious roar rang out. The Swan Eye was about to suffer a second backlash. Without even thinking, Lin Muyu's figure shot forward, God-binding chains circling around her fist. Her iron palm turned into a blade, and with the power of 5 mountains descending from the heavens, she smashed it down. Bang! Sparks flew everywhere, and half of the Swan Eye star's head was blasted off. However, it suddenly opened its mouth and bit towards Lin Muyu's arm, as if it was about to bite down on her. Do you really have such good teeth? Lin Muyu couldn't help but sneer. The 7 luminaries' fairy gourd shone brightly, and the dragon blood battle shield suddenly appeared around her arm. Immediately, the Swan Ni's sharp teeth rammed into the shield, and with a loud bang, the shield was completely shattered. Lin Muyu took the opportunity to punch the giant beast's mouth, and activated the 3 luminaries' calamity profound energy, forcibly tearing the Swan Ni's body apart once again. The second backlash had already made him sweat profusely. This repeated over and over again, and the soul of the Swan Eye continued to fight back. After the 8th time, a bite mark appeared on Lin Muyu's shoulder, and she had already pulled out the star sword to fight back. But the outer layer around the spirit stone was also peeling off, and it would not be long before it was refined. This was also the last struggle of the Swan Eye. Roar! The 9th backlash was, after all, an ancient beast, and the strength of its counterattack was stronger than the one before. The giant beast, several meters tall, roared in the treasure cauldron, and swung its sharp claws at Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu shouted in a low voice. The 7 luminaries' immortal gourd and the astral binding chains rapidly rotated and disintegrated. In the next moment, the new 7 luminaries' immortal sword Martial Soul's radiance soared into the sky and surrounded the astral sword. The backlash from a mere spirit stone had forced him to use all of his strength to suppress it. He raised his long sword and a golden wave rippled out along with his sword. Deterrence. The 10th level of the God-binding chains could directly attack the opponent's soul. Bang! The The sword fell on the Swan Knee's hard head, and the giant beast howled in pain. Its sharp claws swept past Lin Muyu's abdomen, but the dragon blood battle shield formed by the 7 luminaries' fairy sword successfully blocked the attack, and at the same time, the deterrence's soul attack directly hit the Swan Knee's head. Roar, roar, roar. The swan and I took a few steps back, and miserably fell into the wall of the treasure cauldron. Its ferocity did not diminish, and it pounced again. With a loud roar, the surroundings were filled with golden stars raining down. This move was very familiar, and it turned out to be the ultimate skill of the Swan Knee's nature. Absolute territory. Lin Muyu's body trembled. This time, she had no choice but to go all out. She let out a low roar, and the king's combat flame continuously surged into the 7 luminaries' fairy sword. The big treasure sword shone brightly, and at the same time, the 7 luminaries' Xian energy circulated, and the world spun and reversed. 6 luminaries heaven and earth tribulation. Boom, boom. The might of the 7 luminaries' fairy sword carried the 6 luminaries' heaven and earth tribulation Xian energy, and directly slashed a magnificent cross at the swan and I. Immediately, the last of the ferocious beast's soul was shattered into pieces, but it still roared angrily at Lin Muyu, as if it was unwilling to accept its fate of being defeated by a human. But its roar became weaker, and its body turned into strands of divine power that seeped into the molten iron. Perhaps the Swan Knee's spiritual power was too strong, but Lin Muyu could clearly feel that a single weapon could not withstand the Swan Knee's powerful spiritual power. Well, she could forge another weapon after Qin Yin's sword. After thinking for a while, she decided to forge an iron whip for Tang Xiaoxi. Coincidentally, her usual weapon was also a flame whip. In this case, she could take care of both girls. She was really too smart. Lulu, give me a sword model. I want it to be exquisite and dignified. Yes, big brother. The female elf official's petite and exquisite body flew out, and in an instant, a few sword models appeared in Lin Muyu's mind. After careful consideration, Lin Muyu chose the most dignified one. The body of the sword was exquisite and elegant, and the lines were smooth and sleek. It was very suitable for girls to use, but the veins were simple and unadorned, and the edge of the sword was sharp, but it did not lose the majesty of an emperor. It was very good. Nearly half of the godly iron liquid was poured into the sword model. This iron liquid had been refined to 100% purity, so its hardness and sharpness were definitely not a problem. Then the beast spirit was poured into it. The soul of the swan and I was too strong, and it was not something a weapon could withstand. Therefore, this sword could only withstand half of the spiritual power, but it was already strong enough. At least on this continent, there were only a few of them. When the iron liquid slowly solidified in the sword model, Lin Muyu began to refine the edge. She still used the forging method of compound edges, and her spiritual sense turned into consciousness and seeped into the edge. Like embroidery, she forged and reshaped the edge layer by layer. When it came to weapon forging, Lin Muyu was extremely patient. She forged a total of 18 compound edges for this sword, so the sharpness and wear resistance of this sword were already among the best in the continent. It was only slightly inferior to the star's sword. However, she did not know which great god in the heaven realm had recast the star's sword. Presumably, it was also a divine craftsman of this generation. Next was the process of carving the name of the sword. After thinking about it, Qin Yin was the female empress, so the sword she used had to be a bit more domineering. The nation-suppressing sword was a good name, because it also meant that this sword would guard the country and rule over the 9 provinces. However, after thinking about it carefully, it was not enough to guard a country. After all, there were still many experts in the heaven realm, purgatory, and even other planes eyeing it covetously. In that case, it would be better to name it Heaven-Suppressing Sword. She immediately carved the name, and this name was calculated and scanned by Lulu. After all, Lin Muyu's handwriting was too ugly to look at. There was no pond in the room, so there was no other way. Lin Muyu slowly opened her palm, and the king's battle flame rose up. Under its master's control, its characteristics suddenly changed, and all of the flames turned into ice element frost, which lingered around the heaven-suppressing sword. The treasured sword could be considered complete, and with a dang sound, It fell to the ground. Lin Muyu bent down to pick it up, and lightly waved it in the air. Immediately, she felt a burning sharpness, as if this light wave was going to cut through space. The sharpness of this heaven-suppressing sword could be imagined. Lulu, what's the grade of the heaven-suppressing sword? Lin Muyu squinted her eyes and asked with a smile. Lulu chuckled. Congratulations, big brother, it's the first level of the saint grade. He placed the precious heaven-suppressing sword aside, and began to forge the long whip that he had gifted to Tang Xiaoxi. He looked back and forth in the mold of the long whip, and finally chose a metal whip with 9 sections. Only the tip of the whip had a blade, while the other 8 sections were cast from fine steel. However, if a powerful person used it, it would still have amazing lethality, just like Tang Xiaoxi. The godly iron liquid was slowly poured into the mold, and Lin Muyu was still patiently reconstructing the edge of the 9th section. This 9th section was like a vertebra, with a total of 9 parallel edges. Naturally, it took a lot of effort. After a long time, the whip was born. There were a total of 17 composite edges, and after Lulu scanned it, it was confirmed that it was the first level of the saint grade. Baiyan spirit stones were indeed not given in vain. It actually created 2 first-level saint grade divine weapons. Lin Muyu couldn't help but sigh. It was all her fault for not being able to completely suppress Baiyan's spiritual energy. Otherwise, if she could crush and reconstruct it and directly pour it into a divine weapon, it would definitely be a divine grade weapon. Continuing with the naming, she named this whip the nation-suppressing whip, which was very suitable for Tang Xiaoxi to use. When the 2 weapons were completed, Lin Muyu couldn't help but take a deep breath. After a short rest, she took out another spine of Baiyan and refined it into godly iron. Then, she used spirit stones that were around 10,000 years old to forge a weapon. Until noon the next day, she had forged a total of 12 weapons. Among them, she was more satisfied with 3 of them. All of them were 7th level saint grade, while the rest were all mysterious grade. It was time for Jin Xiaodong to properly promote herself and sell her weapons. Chapter 473. Jin Xiaodong spent a total of 5 days building up the power of the 12 weapons, while Lin Muyu slept for 3 days after she finished forging the weapons. She only woke up on the 4th day. Not long after she woke up, Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi arrived at the Holy Temple. The 2 girls were brought into the Grand Deacon's office by Deacon Guyang, while Lin Muyu was getting up from her soft bed. Mu, what have you been doing these days? You didn't come to the holy sanctum or look for us? Tang Xiaoxi questioned angrily. Qin Yin was dressed in a snow-white ladylike dress that accentuated her curves. Her whole person was radiating light. She sat on the bed and said with a smile, "Brother Yu, this month's income from all the provinces and prefectures have been sent to Lanyan City. After the Ministry of Revenue's statistics, the total tax revenue sent to Lanyan City is 700 million Jin coins. You didn't expect this, did you?" Lin Muyu smiled. Originally, the major cities of the empire were quite rich, but the governors of the various provinces were unwilling to hand over the money to the imperial capital. As he spoke, he tilted his head to look at Tang Xiaoxi. "Ask me what I've been busy with these days. Xiaoxi, look over there. The sword is Xiao Yin's, and the whip is for you. See if you like it." Ah! The 2 girls were overjoyed. The sheath of the heaven-suppressing sword was ready. When Qin Yin held the hilt and pulled out the blade, a majestic saint power condensed on the blade. The sound of the sword lingered for a long time. Her beautiful face was filled with shock and ecstasy. "This sword is for me?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded. "This sword is called the Heaven-Suppressing Sword, 1st rank saint grade. It was forged from Baiyan's spiritual stones. Xiaoxi's whip is called the Nation-Suppressing Whip, also forged from Baiyan's spiritual stones. It's also 1st rank saint grade. What do you think? Do you like it?" Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were covered with a layer of mist. How could she not like it? Her beloved man was always looking out for her. This heaven-suppressing sword was more of Lin Muyu's love and expectations for her. She sheathed the sword and turned to sit next to Lin Muyu. She looked at him deeply and said, "I want this heaven-suppressing sword to become the nation-suppressing divine weapon of the Qin Empire." "Sure." Lin Muyu smiled lazily. Oh right, I'm going to get up and wash up. You two chat first. Yes. Tang Xiaoxi was also very excited. She held the nation-suppressing whip and felt the power of the divine whip. Suddenly, she smiled and a fierce doqi surged around her. She gently waved the long whip. Immediately, the nation-suppressing whip reverberated in the air. At the same time, a flame ripple spread out. It looked very mysterious and violent. If this whip hit a person's body, it was likely that the person would be half dead even if they did not die. When Lin Muyu finished washing up, she put on a set of white royal robe armor. The white robe was made by Qin Yin, but the armor seemed to be newly cast. Especially the armor. Not only were there floating gems inlaid on it, there was also a black gem. When she reached out to touch it, a blue light emerged and a magic array was faintly discernible. Wow, what is this? Lin Muyu was stunned. It's the engraving of the armor. Tang Xiaoxi smiled and said, as the commander of the Longdan army camp, you are indeed worthy of wearing this kind of armor with 2 layers of engraving. Lin Muyu was confused. It seemed that her understanding of this world was still too little. She asked, what is engraving? Can you explain it to me? Qinin chuckled. You don't know what engraving is? Previously, the armor that Grandpa Guiyang gave me was all inlaid with floating gems. It was very light to wear, but I didn't know much about other things. Engraving is a profound secret art. Qinin pursed her red lips and looked at Lin Muyu's confused look. She smiled and continued to explain. Engraving has been popular on this continent for tens of thousands of years. Actually, the theory of engraving is very simple. It is to use the spiritual energy of the gems to engrave an ancient profound array on the armor. This array will enhance the armor to a certain extent, just like this armor of yours. Qinin reached out her hand and gently touched the armor on Lin Muyu's chest. She said, there are 2 layers of engraving on this armor. The first layer is the solid rock seal, which can provide protection to the wearer and block a certain amount of sword attacks. The second layer is the soaring seal, which is a profound array enhanced by floating gems. This layer of engraving can greatly reduce the weight of the armor. It seems that the person who engraved this armor is at least a great engraver, which is really rare. Rare? Why do you say that? Lin Muyu asked. Tang Xiaoxi explained, because the art of engraving has been passed down for tens of thousands of years, it has already begun to decline. Many great engravers, engraving guides, and even divine engravers have already ascended to the heaven realm or been killed. Moreover, the gems on this continent are becoming more and more scarce. People pay more attention to learning to dance and rarely study engraving. However, a great engraver is still very respected. Qinin lightly nodded and said with a smile, the Ministry of Works has a group of engravers, but most of them are only engraver apprentices and engravers. They are still far from being engravers, not to mention great engravers and engraving guides. Lin Muyu furrowed her eyebrows. She gently condensed a king's fighting flame on her fingertip and slowly stabbed it towards the armor in front of her chest. When it was about 5 centimeters away from the armor, a deep blue magic circle suddenly appeared on the armor. It was actually used to block the king's fighting flame. However, the king's fighting flame was too strong, and it still managed to pierce through the layer of protection. However, Lin Muyu was already secretly surprised. He had used 10% of his king's battle flame, and could still feel the defensive ability of this engraving. If it was an ordinary soldier's sword, wouldn't it be completely unable to harm the person wearing the engraved armor? Therefore, he asked with great interest, how are the levels of engravers determined? Qinin smiled as if she was familiar with them. They are divided into engraver apprentice, engraver master, great engraver, engraver guide, great engraver, king's engraver, and divine engraver. There are 7 levels in total. However, for thousands of years, most of the engravers are only at the first 4 levels. As for great engraver and king's engraver, there are only a few of them. Divine engravers are even rarer. The most powerful engraver in the Qin Empire in recent years, Zhang Lin, passed away more than 70 years ago. At that time, he was a king's engraver. Tang Xiaoxi looked at Lin Muyu with a smile and asked, why Mu, do you want to learn engraver? Lin Muyu heavily nodded and said, It's never a bad thing to have more skills. In fact, he was imagining another scene in his mind. A group of heavy cavalrymen in the Longdan army camp were holding their engraved shields, and were unstoppable in the midst of armored demons. It was such a wonderful scene. Where are we going now? Tang Xiaoxi asked. Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce. Let's go and have a look at our property. Okay. Outside the door, Bai Yin, who was wearing the uniform of the Longdan army camp, saluted respectfully and led a warhorse. This bodyguard finally looked like a bodyguard. If Guiyang hadn't told Lin Muyu that the old hens in the kitchen had been disappearing for no reason recently, Lin Muyu wouldn't have believed it. In the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce, the workers were hurriedly making and carrying goods. When Lin Muyu, Qin Yin, and Tang Xiaoxi arrived, they were immediately led into the office hall by someone. Big brother Yu. Jin Xiaotang wore a set of pink fur armor and a short skirt made of white cloud deerskin. Her long and slender legs were wearing small boots, and her mature figure was becoming more and more enchanting. She walked up with a smile and said, "You're finally willing to come to the Merchant Guild." As she spoke, she saw Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi. She immediately said respectfully, "Greetings, Your Highness Princess." "Dispense with the formalities," Qin Yin smiled. "I'm just here to watch the fun. You can chat with you." Jin Xiaotang stepped forward and held Lin Muyu's arm. She smiled intimately and said, "The promotion for the 12 divine weapons has been completed. Now, everyone in Lanyan City knows that the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce will be selling 3 saint weapons and 9 mysterious weapons in 2 days. Many nobles have rushed here from the major provinces. Some even saw merchants from Lingnan entering the imperial capital. They must have heard the news and come here. Not bad, not bad." Lin Muyu couldn't stop praising. Jin Xiaotang looked at the armor on his chest and smiled mysteriously. "How do you like this armor? I personally ordered someone to make 2 layers of engraving for you." Oh. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be delighted. Who's so powerful to be able to make 2 layers of engraving? Humph. Jin Xiaotang's pink lips curled up slightly as she said proudly, "He's a talent that I spent a lot of money to poach from the Cloud Province. I'll introduce him to you right away." "All right." Jin Xiaotang immediately said to the servants, "Go invite the master and a few engravers over." Yes. Not long after, a few people dressed in luxurious clothing walked in. Some were in their 50s and 60s, while others were in their 20s and 30s. One of them was a young man with a large jade hanging from his waist. He looked arrogant and held a paper fan in his hand. He looked to be in his 30s, and no matter how one looked at him, he looked like a spoiled brat. However, he was the one with the highest level of engraving in this group. Jin Xiaotang smiled. "Let me introduce you. This is Wei Miao, the descendant of an engraver family in the Cloud Province. He's the only engraver in our Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce. Young Master Wei, this is the true owner of the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce, one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan, Lin Muyu, one of the Empire's great generals." Wei Miao slowly closed his paper fan and bowed respectfully to Lin Muyu. "This commoner, Wei Miao, pays his respects to Commander Yu." "You're welcome." Lin Muyu raised his hand. Even though the hint of arrogance in Wei Miao's eyes did not escape Lin Muyu's notice, he was not offended by the fact that a person with supreme skills would have a temper. Jin Xiaotang continued to introduce the engravers behind her. "This is Zhang Zhao, a great engraver. This is Sun Jing, also a great engraver. They are masters hired by the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce, with a large sum of money." Nice to meet you all." Lin Muyu cupped her fists. Everyone bowed respectfully. Lin Muyu then whispered to Jin Xiaotang, "Xiaotang, next, is the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce going to focus on engraving?" "No." Jin Xiaotang smiled mischievously and whispered, "If we want to expand our business, we have to consider all aspects. The Empire has been peaceful for decades, and engraving on armors was on the verge of decline. However, with the chaos of the Iha nation and the demon race, there's a market for engraving on armors again. Our Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce can't fall behind the Dragon Search Chamber of Commerce, right?" "All right." Lin Muyu smiled happily. It was really reassuring to have Jin Xiaotang managing the Chamber of Commerce. This mischievous girl was born to be a good businessman. Chapter 474. Forget it, get up, I'm not blaming you. Lin Muyu raised his hand, and the pressure of the holy realm surged, forcibly lifting Wei Miao's body up. Just when he finished about 20% of the engraving pattern, a subtle echo came from the pattern, which made Lin Muyu excited. The engraving pattern seemed to have a life of its own, resonating with his king's battle flame. This should be a good thing, right? At night, the Zetian Palace's library was brightly lit. Lin Muyu searched for a long time, and almost flipped through all the books on engraving in the library. Among them there were a few books that seemed to be worth studying, namely Engraving Theory, Engraving Technique Essentials, and Engraving Formation Illustration. These books should be enough for beginners. When the engraving crystal covered the Imperial Fire Seal, the crystal shone brightly, and the number on the top jumped violently, finally stopping at 32. At the side, Qin Yin slowly woke up, and when she turned around, she saw Lin Muyu's handsome face, and couldn't help but smile sweetly. "Good morning, big brother you." Tang Xiaoxi and Qin Yin were so shocked that their little mouths were wide open. Although they knew that Lin Muyu was talented, to be able to complete the 87% Imperial Fire Seal in one night was too shocking. "Is that so?" Wei Miao hurriedly knelt on the ground. I know I was wrong." Lin Muyu threw the armor behind him, and when he turned around he was shocked. There were more than 100 royal guards' armors piled up behind him. Most of them were scraps, and a few were successful products. But there were many types of engraving. From level 1 to level 7, the engraving became more and more profound. From the book Engraving Theory, Lin Muyu knew the power of engraving. Level 5 Dragon Slayer Seal provided the armor with dragon armor for defense. Level 6 Imperial God Seal provided the armor wearer with a certain degree of immunity, and Level 7 God Slayer Seal provided the armor wearer with a strong divine power resistance. This also meant that a God State expert wearing armor with the God Slayer Seal would have a huge advantage over a God State expert of the same strength. Qin Yin was silent, and added a piece of meat for Lin Muyu, and said with a smile, "If you want to learn engraving, you must first eat your fill." But at the moment, Lin Muyu could only be considered an engraving apprentice, so he could only start from level 1. Lin Muyu was overjoyed. It seemed that he really had a talent for engraving. The spiritual connection between him and the Imperial Fire Seal must be what Wei Miao was talking about. And his king's combat flame was much stronger than Wei Miao's true qi. Only by engraving an 87% perfect engraving could he be worthy of his rank as a holy king. "Thank you, Xiao Yin." Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. Lin Muyu opened his palm. After an entire night of engraving, although he was physically and mentally exhausted, the king's combat flame surging between his fingers actually had a more soft feeling, which made him extremely happy. The king's combat flame was very fierce, but it was definitely not the most powerful force. A true expert should be able to control and release it at will. And now that one night of engraving seemed to have improved his ability to control and release it at will. Just like what the ancient books said, engraving itself was a form of cultivation, and it was not a waste of time. Tang Xiaoxi opened the cabinet at the side, and took out a special crystal machine, and said, "This is an engraving crystal. It can test the degree of perfection of engraving. Come and try it." "Okay." Pa! The next morning, a ray of morning light shone on the table in the library, and Lin Muyu slowly put down the armor in his hand. After embedding the ice crystal, the Imperial Cold Seal was activated, and the testing crystal showed a number of 93%. TSK, 93% perfection. It was almost there. Success. Qin Yin was overjoyed, and she was even happier than when she completed a masterpiece. Qin Yin smiled and said, "It's okay, let the Ministry of Works forge it again. I heard that behind a successful divine sealer, there are at least tens of thousands of failed products." Lin Muyu was extremely embarrassed. "Good morning, Xiao Yin." They had lunch in the Chamber of Commerce, and Wei Miao, Zhang Zhao, Sun Jing, and the other engravers also had lunch together. When Lin Muyu showed great interest in engraving, Jin Shouting smiled and asked, "Big brother, you also wants to learn engraving?" According to the engraving formation manual, There were 4 main types of engraving: Imperial Fire Seal, Imperial Wind Seal, Imperial Cold Seal, and Imperial Thunder Seal. As the name suggested, it was used to resist the power of various types of laws, and the power of these 4 types of engraving was provided by red agate, sapphire, ice crystal, and purple crystal. Although these gems were expensive, they were not considered rare. Shangguan Jinghua smiled gently and said, "Yes, the Imperial Guard armor in the Zetian Palace Hall is almost used up by you, sir." The 2 beauties actually quietly leaned over the table at the side and fell asleep. Lin Muyu did not disturb them. She only took 2 blankets from Shangguan Jinghua, the Empress's female official, and gently covered Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi with them so that they would not catch a cold. After that, she continued to focus on her engraving career. Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi did not expose their identities in front of the engravers, but when Lin Muyu said, "Xiao Yin, Wei Miao, Sun Jing," and the rest more or less guessed something. When they faintly felt that this talented and radiant beauty in front of them could possibly be the Empress, Qin Yin, all of them suddenly felt a little uneasy. They did not dare to touch the dishes in front of the Empress, and could only eat the plate in front of them. The pitiful Wei Miao had no choice but to finish the plate of cucumber with mashed garlic in front of him. At this moment, the arrogance on Wei Miao's face appeared again. He held his chopsticks and said, "Commander Yu is a martial artist, and his attainment in martial arts is naturally far superior to others. However, the art of engraving is about the unity of the heart and the hand. Any slight deviation will result in failure. I'm afraid it will not be easy for Commander Yu to learn." Tang Xiaoxi said happily, "Although it is only a level 1 engraving, it is more than 80% perfect. Basically, this piece of work can be sold for more than 1,000 Jinin dollars in Lanyan City." "It's broken?" Qin Yin's eyes widened as she stood guard at the side. This time he completed the Imperial Fire Seal in one go. When the red agate was embedded, a fiery red mystical formation faintly appeared. He used the testing crystal to check, and this time, the number jumped out to 87%. Cough cough. Therefore he continued to study the Imperial Wind Seal, the Imperial Cold Seal, and the Imperial Thunder Seal. Suddenly, a corner of the mystical formation collapsed. Lin Muyu carefully flipped through the records of the Imperial Fire Seal, and found that the engraving depth should be 0.07 centimeters. Obviously his engraving depth was only 0.05 centimeters, which was far from enough. Thus, he took another armor and continued to try to engrave the Imperial Fire Seal. At midnight, Lin Muyu had already broken 7 or 8 armors, but he did not give up. His face was full of sweat, and Qin Yin helped him wipe it off and accompanied him patiently. Taking out a Royal Guard armor, Lin Muyu began to study. Following the illustration in the book, he used a small engraving knife to carefully copy the Imperial Fire Seal's mystical formation. Wisps of King's Battle Flame seeped into the mystical formation along the small knife. This was what Wei Miao had said, mind and soul as one. When engraving, one must inject one's own energy, otherwise, one would not be able to activate the engraving mystical formation. So expensive. Of course. Tang Xiaoxi chuckled. This means that the perfection of this Imperial Fire Seal is 32%. Normally, engraving less than 50% is a failure. There must be a problem with the technique and the depth of the engraving. Wei Miao. Tang Xiaoxi's pretty face turned cold, and she said, "Watch your words. The person talking to you is the Empire's General Lin Muyu, not some manservant working in the Chamber of Commerce." "Does it mean that it's very strong?" Lin Muyu asked carefully. Encouraged by the noble Empress's little girlfriend, Lin Muyu continued to concentrate on the engraving knife, and continued to engrave the Imperial Fire Seal. The Imperial Fire Seal was one of the simplest engraving techniques. If one could not even master the Imperial Fire Seal, then there was no need to mention the more advanced engraving formations. Jin Xiaoting smiled. The engraving masters in our Chamber of Commerce can teach you. Yes, I have this thought. Lin Muyu nodded. Yes. The armor you are wearing is Wei Miao's work, and the perfection of the 2 layers of engraving is only 67% and 72%. Yes, Lin Muyu looked ashamed. Moreover, the king's fighting flame was far stronger than the qi used by Wei Miao, Zhang Zhao, and the others. Logically speaking, the engraving of the king's fighting flame should be stronger than Wei Miao's and the others. Lin Muyu was not in a hurry. She engraved the metal on the armor one by one, and the engraving knife was wrapped in the king's fighting flame. Finally, a perfect circular imperial fire seal was completed, and there was a faint red light enshrouding it. When a red agate was inserted into it, the engraving formation immediately let out a whooshing sound, and strands of energy flowed from the red agate into the engraving formation. "It's fine." Qi giggled, and she handed over another armor. "There are many armors in the royal guards. Brother Yu, don't rush. Take it slow, and you will succeed eventually." "Yes." Lin Muyu raised an eyebrow and said, "Young Master Wei, is the engraving that profound?" She seemed to have gotten used to the days when Lin Muyu was by her side, and she only wished to see him when she opened her eyes every morning. "So many," he said in shock. The principle of engraving was very simple. Engrave the required profound formation on the flat metal, and then insert a gem to provide energy for the profound formation. This way, the profound formation would naturally be activated. "Of course," Wei Miao said proudly. "Our Wei clan has focused on engraving for dozens of generations, but there are very few true master engravers. I have practiced engraving for almost 20 years, but I am only an engraving guide. Commander, you are busy with other matters, and I am afraid that it will be difficult for you to calm down. It will not be good if you give up halfway." "No. Impossible. Close to 90% perfection." Qi looked at him with surprise and joy. You must be a genius, or else how could you?" Chapter 475. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 days had passed. Lin Muyu had been studying engraving in his spare time, but he had only focused on the first level of engraving. He was not in a hurry to succeed, and after repeated practice, he was able to achieve a perfect engraving of more than 98%. Although it was only a first-level engraving, there were not many engravers in the world who could achieve this level of concentration and meticulousness. Jin Xiaodang had told him that even an engraving master like Wei Miao could only achieve a perfect engraving of around 90%. Sha. The exquisite engraving knife was gently grinding on the surface of the armor, and a layer of fine iron chips fell to the ground. The afternoon sun shone into the deacon's office through the window. Lin Muyu was focused on engraving, as if there was no one else around him. But the problem was that Tang Xiaoxi, Chu Yao, and Feng Jixing were all sitting in the office, drinking tea and chatting. "Brother Feng, what have you been busy with these days?" Chu Yao asked. Feng Jixing was dressed in a brand new high-ranking military uniform of the empire. He crossed his legs and drank tea, saying, "It's nothing much. I just train my soldiers every day, and then cultivate the wind-walking saber technique. When I have time, I go visit Her Highness Feng Ning. Is the demon princess living comfortably in the capital?" Tang Xiaoxi asked with a smile. "Yes." Feng Jixing nodded. "I've asked Zhang Wei to bring her around the streets. Princess Feng Ning has mostly adapted to the lifestyle of the empire. She's planting flowers every day, and she's happy and contented. I really wonder if she'll get used to it when she returns to the demon's territory." Tang Xiaoxi raised her eyebrows, glanced at Lin Muyu's engraving progress, and said with a smile, "I heard that Feng Ning is the apple of the Demon King's eye. That cruel Demon King is so willing to let Feng Ning stay in the capital? It can't be helped. The demons have repeatedly sent people to persuade us, wanting to exchange Lingdong province for Feng Ning. But we didn't agree. Lingdong province is barren, and it's not good for defending. Even if we get it back, it will be easily taken away by the demons. Speaking of which, Ayu, that stinking brat, asked me to come over and say that I have something to discuss with him. But he's still fiddling with the engraving, ignoring me." Chu Yao laughed. "You has been immersed in engraving recently, so don't worry about him." But at this moment, Lin Muyu's carving knife suddenly broke the last leg of the profound formation with a kacha sound. Accompanied by the sound of the metal piece falling to the ground, the imperial fire seal suddenly shone brightly. When the testing crystal was placed on top of it, The numbers jumped rapidly with a continuous buzzing sound. It was extremely strange. Everyone looked over and saw a row of numbers appearing on the testing crystal. 100%. Everyone and my god. Tang Xiaoxi opened her small mouth. 100% perfect, it can't be. This guy Mu is simply a big monster. Chu Yao laughed. In terms of level 1 engraving, you can be said to be number 1 in the world. Lin Muyu also finally raised his head to look at everyone. The king's battle flame vortex around his arm danced, becoming more and more vigorous. After completing this engraving, his strength once again completed a breakthrough. He had already stepped into the great success realm of the Holy Grandmaster realm, and was only one step away from the great perfection realm of the Holy Grandmaster realm. And Feng Jixing also seemed to see it, and couldn't help but smile. Congratulations you, your strength has improved again. Thank you big brother Feng. Lin Muyu nodded. Feng Jixing said, "Oh right, why did you call me here? I want to show big brother Feng something." "And? What is it? It's so mysterious." "Let's go out first, it's not very convenient here." "Okay." After leading the three of them out of the Grand Deacon's office, they went straight to the backyard of the Holy Sanctum. Under Lin Muyu's command, the instructors and sparring partners who were training in the backyard quickly left, leaving the backyard empty. There were only fake mountains, ponds, and a few low-rise houses in the surroundings. "What is it?" Feng Jixing asked with interest. Lin Muyu said solemnly, "It is something that can change the future of the empire. Big brother Feng, Xiaoxi, sister Chu Yao, step back a bit, stay 20 meters away from me, or you will be in danger." Oh. The three were confused, but they still stepped back according to her words. Lin Muyu took out a coin from her pocket. It was a magic crystal coin from the demon race. After weighing it, she pulled out the star's sword, cut off a corner of the magic crystal coin, and held it in her hand. With a shout, the walls of the 7 luminaries' holy gourd and the blood dragon shield appeared around her, and then the king's combat flame surged, quickly turning into a blazing power of the law of lightning that lingered around the small magic crystal. Swish, swish, swish. Under the influence of the power of lightning, the small magic crystal kept trembling, and in the blink of an eye, it had been burned into a fiery red by Lin Muyu's pure combat flame. A trace of worry flashed across Tang Xiaoxi's pretty face. She had seen this scene before, and the destructive power contained in the small magic crystal was very shocking. Thinking of this, she unconsciously moved to the front of Chu Yao, and the pressure of the sanctuary around her slowly fell, and the two-tailed firefox martial soul appeared to protect her master, and Chu Yao behind her. Feng Jixing narrowed his eyes. As a sanctuary powerhouse, he could also feel that the small magic crystal was accumulating a strong force under the power of Lin Muyu. "This is," he muttered to himself. He wanted to say something, but stopped himself. He continued to wait and see. At this moment, the magic crystal, which was less than the size of a fingernail, had already been burned red, and it was trembling in Lin Muyu's palm. Suddenly, a light burst into the sky. Bam! A small mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and the impact formed by the explosion of the magic crystal tore the stone slabs on the ground, and the flowers and plants within a few meters were all torn into pieces. Even a nearby rockery had collapsed. Lin Muyu stood majestically on the ground, and she was safe and sound with the dragon blood shield protecting her. However, her heart was still in turmoil, and it was really uncomfortable. If it was not a small magic crystal coin, but an entire magic crystal coin that exploded at the same time, the destructive power would have been completely different. "Did you see that, Big Brother Feng?" "Big Brother Feng." He smiled. Feng Jixing frowned and said, "You magic crystals can actually explode. This is something I've never heard of before." "Yes, but the requirements for a magic crystal to explode are very high. The magic crystal must be heated to a certain temperature with the power of thunder and lightning as the catalyst before it explodes." Lin Muyu recalled the scene in the Cloud Ridge, and she could not help but feel a lingering fear. She said, "Back then Ji Luo, one of the 15 elders of the demon race, ignited the magic crystal coins in his clothes and caused them to explode. I guess there were at least dozens of magic crystal coins, And once they exploded, almost everything within 100 meters was destroyed. Xiaoxi also saw that scene. In order to withstand the impact of the explosion, my dragon spirit sword was forcibly shattered. That was a Saint-grade weapon. Tang Xiaoxi nodded lightly. The destructive power of the magic crystal that day was indeed more than 10 times stronger than today. Feng Jixing said. Then, what do you think? Lin Muyu looked at the white clouds in the sky and said with a smile. I want to use the magic crystal energy for my own use. If it is possible, we can cast a magic crystal into a fist-sized ball. Then cast a thick layer of iron on the outside, and then use the principle of 2 kicks and a circular pipe to make a cannon barrel. We can send the magic crystal 100 or even 1,000 meters away and detonate it. At that time, the power of the cannon will be earth-shattering. Will we still have to worry about not being able to defeat the demon race? A name was on the tip of his tongue, Magic Crystal Cannon. That's right, this was a common term that could be found on the streets. It was seen in all kinds of novels and games, but this was the first time that Lin Muyu felt that this name was so cute. As long as the Empire was the first to develop the Magic Crystal Cannon, then this kind of Magic Crystal Cannon would be enough to change the situation of the entire continent. With the power of the Magic Crystal Cannon, even the gods would have to be somewhat afraid. But Feng Jixing was confused. What is a 2-kick and a cannon barrel? What is that? Lin Muyu was speechless. I knew it. Forget it, you will understand when I draw a simple diagram later. But today, I called you over not only to show you, but more importantly, I want to discuss something with you. What is it? Say it. Feng Jixing laughed straightforwardly. I want to set up a weapons department in the Holy Temple and transfer Qin Xiling from the Ministry of Works back to the Holy Temple. If possible, I want to pull over some capable and experienced people from the weapons department in the Ministry of Works to help me. Oh, Feng Jixing was stunned. You want to privately develop this kind of powerful weapon? That's right. Lin Muyu crossed her arms, her eyes flashing with a strange light. She smiled and said, once this kind of weapon is completed, its power is enough to change the current situation of the world. But the Ministry of Works not only listens to the 2 of us, but also to Duke Lan, Duke Yun, Xiangyu, Yao Yuan and the others. There is no knowing what is in a person's heart. I can't imagine what the consequences will be if this kind of weapon falls into the hands of others. Okay. Feng Jixing nodded. Then let me help you settle this matter. But, when this kind of weapon is developed, don't forget Brother Feng. You must equip my Imperial Guards with this kind of destructive weapon. Haha, don't worry. Then I'll do as you say. Oh right. Feng Jixing coughed and looked strangely at Tang Xiaoxi and Chu Yao. He then lowered his voice and said, You haven't visited Feng Ninger in a long time. She keeps asking me when you're going to visit her. She's the demon princess and favors you so much. When are you going to visit her? Lin Muyu stilled. Feng Jixing's voice was so loud that almost everyone on Skyspan Street could hear him. Tang Xiaoxi and Chu Yao naturally heard him as well. Humph. Tang Xiaoxi's pink lips curved slightly as she looked arrogantly at Lin Muyu. The snow-colored fur on her soft armor swayed in the wind. Chu Yao giggled and glared at Lin Muyu. The demon princess has taken a fancy to you. Humph, you're too promiscuous. Xiaoxi, Sister Chu Yao, I really didn't. Lin Muyu felt wronged. She explained. I'm just treating Feng Ninger politely. I think I'd better not visit her. Brother Feng, just take good care of her. Feng Jixing waved his hand. No, although Feng Jixing lacks girls in this life, I will never touch a demon woman. Let Zhang Wei take care of her. Anyway, Zhang Wei is heartless and only knows how to drink and practice martial arts. He has no mood to fall in love with any woman. All right. Chapter 476. In the middle of the night, a large piece of white paper was spread out on the Grand Deacon's desk. The candle flame on the bronze lamp swayed slowly. Lin Muyu held a crudely made fountain pen in her hand as she carefully drew on the white paper. On the paper was a crude blueprint of a magic crystal cannon. In truth, the forging of the cannon was very simple. Any normal person would know how to do it. However, What Lin Muyu could not figure out was how to make the magic crystal cannon leave the chamber and explode when it hit the ground. If it was not controlled properly, it would explode right in the cannon's chamber. That would not be worth it. Lulu. He called out softly. Yes, big bro, Lulu is here. The beautiful elven officer flew out and landed on his arm. She crossed her legs and asked with a smile. Big bro, do you have anything to ask Lulu? Yes. Do you know the structure of the magic crystal cannon? Ah. Lulu opened her mouth and shook her head. Not really. There's no blueprint of the magic crystal cannon in Conquer's database. Big bro, you should ask something else. Then, do you have the blueprint of the cannon in your database? Not really. Lulu was a little helpless. Big bro, Lulu is just a game elf, not a war elf. These things. Lulu doesn't have them. Is that so? Lin Muyu was a little disappointed. However, at that moment Lulu suddenly smiled and said, But don't be too sad, big bro. Lulu's system has a thread on Conquer's forum. Do you want me to check it for you? Okay. Lulu sat there quietly, her eyes a little dazed. After a while, she opened her eyes and said with a smile, I found it. On the 14th of July, 2015, at 15:28 in the afternoon, a player called Xiaorao Zizai was arguing with someone on the forum. He posted a thread about the collision principle of the cannon. Do you want me to get it for you? Yes, that's great. Quick. A few seconds later, the details of a forum post appeared in Lin Muyu's mind. It was indeed posted by a player named Xiaoyao Zizai. His level was not high, and he looked like a newbie. However, from the way he posted it, it was obvious that he was a professional. He had hand-drawn a blueprint of the explosion principle and posted it on the forum. Perhaps this person was from the military? Lin Muyu was secretly delighted. Her heart was filled with joy. Xiaorao Zizai, you really are my brother. If I have the chance, I will definitely find you and treat you to a meal. At this moment, a certain someone, who was billions of light years away, was drinking afternoon tea in the garden room of a private apartment. He was leisurely sniffing the coffee in his cup when he suddenly sneezed. He frowned, and his handsome face was filled with suspicion as he said, Wonder, I keep feeling like I'm being targeted. The beautiful girl beside him turned around and glanced at him. She smiled and said, Yo, someone's been targeting our brother Xiaoyao. It can't be. Dongcheng, didn't you just go downstairs to pick up a package? I can't even bear it for a few minutes. You're just too petty and easily jealous. Is that so? That's right, some heartless guy is. That's right. Have you made any progress on the case that Captain Wang Xian asked you to investigate? Where did the second young master of the Long Xian group, Lin Ji, go? It can't be that he suddenly disappeared without a trace, right? Moreover, he disappeared for 2 years. I don't know. I really don't have a clue. Come, let's drink some tea. Who cares if he's Lin Ji? Who knows, maybe he's somewhere in Xiaoyao. Don't worry, I'll let Xinglai and Fu Tu go investigate. Let's enjoy this happy afternoon. He carelessly reached out and hugged the girl's shoulder. The girl in his arms blushed, but didn't say anything. Obviously, Lin Ji in the Shattered Cauldron world wasn't as comfortable as Xiaoyao. He was painstakingly rewriting the drawings drawn by a certain unscrupulous person in front of his eyes. As he wrote, he tried to decipher the words on the drawings. He frowned and said, What the heck, this Xiaorao Zizai's handwriting is too ugly. It's like dragons and phoenixes dancing. What does he write? It wasn't until the rooster crowed that Lin Muyu finally finished drawing the principle of the collision explosion. She used up 3 whole sheets of white paper. The magic crystal cannon. It was easy to explain, but when it came to solving all kinds of technical problems, Lin Muyu, the Holy King, almost died from worry. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. It was Bai Yin's voice. Commander, the people from the Ministry of Works are here. Oh. Let them in. Yes. After the door to the office opened, a group of technical personnel wearing military uniforms walked in. Qin Xiling walked at the very front, and behind him were a dozen technical personnel. Qin Xiling pays his respects to Great Deacon and Commander Yu. Qin Xiling's expression was high as he gave a standard Empire military salute to Lin Muyu. Xiling, there's no need to be so polite. Sit. Lin Muyu waved her hand with a gentle expression. Xiling, take a look at these drawings first. See if it's possible to develop this new weapon. Yes. Qin Xiling brought the 3 drawings over and carefully studied them. He was the one who developed the quiver, so his understanding of the magic crystal cannon was naturally much faster than the average person. His eyes grew brighter and brighter as he looked at them. He couldn't help but raise his head to look at Lin Muyu and said, Great Deacon, did you personally draw these? Yes, the ink hasn't dried yet. Heavens! Qin Xiling said with a face full of admiration. Xiling has to admit his inferiority. Great Deacon's wisdom is indeed incomparable to the average person. However, the only problem is how to trigger the explosion of the magic crystal. According to what Great Deacon wrote, the power needed to detonate the magic crystal is not something an average person can have. That's right. Lin Muyu said. Probably only cultivators at the heaven realm and above can use the power of the law of lightning to detonate the magic crystal. However, in the entire empire, there are many people like this. What I want to ask is there anything that can store the power of lightning? It can't be that every cannon shell needs a cultivator at the heaven realm and above to store power, right? Qin Xiling couldn't help but smile. This isn't a problem. There is something called the energy storage crystal. Great Deacon doesn't need to worry. Although the energy storage crystal doesn't have many uses normally, and the power it can store is quite limited, it shouldn't be a problem to use it to detonate the magic crystal. The only problem is that the detonation device is very complicated. Yes, no problem. Xiling, how confident are you in successfully developing this weapon? Qin Xiling thought about it. His eyes were filled with interest and he said, at least 80% confident. Good. Lin Muyu stood up and cupped her fists. Everyone, you are all the pillars of the empire. I have asked you to come over from the Ministry of Works. From now on, you are the people of the Divine Temple and the soldiers of the Longdan Army Camp. However, the development of this magic crystal cannon must be kept a secret. Therefore, you will need to bring your families to live in the Divine Temple. But don't worry, all your living needs will be provided by the Divine Temple. Your salary will be doubled. As long as you successfully develop the magic crystal cannon, I will ask Her Highness Yin for your merits. Everyone will be promoted by 3 ranks. Everyone stood up and bowed. Thank you, Great General. We will definitely serve you with our lives. Good. Lin Muyu nodded and said in a clear voice, Wei Chou, bring Xiling and the other lords to rest. Arrange everything well. The Longdan Army Camp must do its best to satisfy their needs. Wei Chou cupped his fists and smiled. I understand. Lords, please follow me. Lin Muyu looked at Qin Xiling and added, Xiling, you must be careful. The explosive power of a small piece of magic crystal can reach 10 meters away. You must be careful. Qin Xiling cupped his fists. Thank you for your concern, Great Deacon. I understand. I will take my leave first. Great Deacon's eyes are red. You must be tired. Rest early. Okay. The next day, the first thing that came to her mind when she woke up was the engraving. That's right, it was time to challenge the level 2 engraving. After all, the power of the level 1 engraving was too weak. Whether it was the Imperial Fire engraving or the Imperial Thunder engraving, they could only resist the power of one type of law. The level 2 engraving, the solid rock engraving, could increase the defensive ability of the armor. This was not something that the 4 types of engraving could compare to. The carving knife made a sha-sha sound as it carved the solid rock engraving on the armor. The solid rock engraving was more complicated and exquisite. The level 1 Imperial Fire engraving only needed around 100 cuts, but the solid rock engraving required 300 cuts or even more. Lin Muyu used more than 500 cuts, only to find that the engraving was wrong. The first level 2 engraving was ruined just like that. She continued with the image of the solid rock engraving in her mind and raised the knife again. In the end, the second and third engraving also failed. The engraved profound formation did not seem to respond to her king fighting flame. This made Lin Muyu very annoyed. At this time, Jin Xiaotong's voice came from outside the door. Big brother Yu, the auction house's business was very good yesterday. We earned more than 10 million Jin coins. Do you want to come with me to take a look at the accounts? Big sister Tang Xiaoxi is also waiting for you. Oh, all right. After all, the Purple Flower Merchant Guild was her family's business, and also the main source of equipment for the Longdan army camp. Lin Muyu tidied up her armor and followed Jin Xiaotang to the Merchant Guild. She held a thick account book in her hands. After flipping it open, there were all kinds of details. The 3 Saint-grade weapons were all sold for more than 400,000 Jin coins. There were also many engraved armors that were sold for a high price, especially a double engraved steel armor. It was actually sold for a high price of 7,000 Jin coins. Wow, one armor sold for so much money. Lin Muyu was surprised. Jin Xiaotang burst into laughter. Of course, this armor was made by Master Wei Miao. According to the detailed account, the armor itself is worth about 20 Jin coins, and the gemstones used are worth about 900 Jin coins. We earned more than 6,000 Jin coins from this transaction. This is also the reason why Xiaotang poached Master Wei Miao and Master Zhang Zhao at a high price. Yes, Lin Muyu nodded. No wonder Wei Miao is so arrogant. Before she could finish, Wei Miao's voice came from behind. Don't you think Commander Yu's words are a little too much? Lin Muyu turned around, smiled, and cupped her hands. Master Wei Miao. Wei Miao's eyes were full of arrogance. I heard that Commander Yu has been studying engraving these days. I wonder if you have made any progress? Do you want me to teach you a thing or two? Tang Xiaoxi, who was at the side, was unhappy. A sly light flickered in her starry eyes as she smiled and said, Then why don't we have a competition and see if Mumu's engraving skills are better than yours? Competition? Wei Miao smiled. Those without talent can't engrave. I think we should forget about it. I don't want to embarrass Commander Yu. The engravers behind him also smiled. Engravers were rare, but they were a group of arrogant fellows. Chapter 477. Since we're going to compete, let's start with the basics, Tang Xiaoxi said. Since Mu is a beginner, how about we compete in level 1 engraving? Wei Miao was confident. The arrogance in his eyes was unconcealed. He looked at Lin Muyu with disdain and said, Level 1 engraving? I'm afraid. Commander Yu hasn't been practicing for long, and hasn't mastered level 1 engraving yet. Then let's go with level 1 engraving. Lin Muyu smiled. But what's the point of just competing? Let's have a wager. Alright, what wager? Wei Miao asked. Lin Muyu said, If I lose, I'll give you 50,000 Jinin dollars. If I win, Master Wei Miao, you must work for the Zine Flower Chamber of Commerce for free for a year. What do you think? Alright. Wei Miao said proudly. Then let's compete in level 1 engraving, fire engraving. It's the most basic engraving formation. Let's compete in perfection. What do you think? Sure. Bring 2 sets of armor and 2 red agates, Jin Xiaotang ordered with a smile. Soon, a group of people gathered in the back hall of the Chamber of Commerce. Almost all the engravers had arrived. Everyone was looking forward to the competition. Of course, most of them thought that Lin Muyu, who was known as one of the 4 heroes of Lan Yan, was destined to be humiliated this time. Engraving was different from martial arts. It was not something that could be achieved with perseverance and talent. What was more important was potential and wisdom. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The Emperor's combat flame circled around the carving knife. The moment Lin Muyu started carving, her skillful technique shocked Wei Miao. But Wei Miao was an engraving master after all. He was one of the top engravers in Lanyan City. After calming himself down, the carving knife flew across the surface of the armor. True qi gathered around the carving knife, turning the surface of the armor into powder. The carving knife spun rapidly like a dragon swimming in the sea. In terms of technique, he seemed to be even better than Lin Muyu. In the blink of an eye, the 2 sets of armor had been engraved. At the side, Jin Xiaotang, the notary, announced loudly, The engraving is complete. Master Wei Miao, 327 cuts. Brother Yu, 334 cuts. In terms of knife skills, Wei Miao won. Fortunately, this was not a competition of knife skills, but a competition of perfection. Lin Muyu held the armor with full confidence. The profound formation had a strong resonance with him, and he could even confirm that his engraving would definitely win. Sealing Master Zhang Zhao walked forward and placed the testing crystal on Wei Miao's work. Under the illumination of the light, the profound formation's energy seeped into the crystal. Instantly, the number jumped up and stopped at a huge number. 92%. All right. In the surroundings, the group of engravers cheered. Although it was only a simple level 1 engraving, the number of people who could achieve 90% and above was definitely a minority. Holding the crystal, Zhang Zhao approached Lin Muyu and said respectfully, "Commander Yu, I apologize for my lack of manners." "Come on." Lin Muyu smiled brightly. When the testing crystal was placed horizontally on the armor, the Imperial Fire Seal had already appeared on the armor. A fiery red seal formation appeared very beautiful, and the seal formation's energy seeped into the crystal continuously. The number jumped up and down violently, finally stopping at a shocking number, 100%. In an instant, the surroundings became silent. All the engravers were dumbfounded. A few seconds later, an uproar of applause sounded. "Commander Yu, you're too amazing." As expected of the 4 heroes of Lanyan. 100% perfection, my god, this is too unbelievable. Jin Xiaotang announced with a smile. "Brother Yu wins." Wei Miao's face was full of disappointment. He sat there desolately, like a defeated rooster. "Master Wei Miao, the engraving of the Purple Flower Chamber of Commerce for the next year will be in your hands." Lin Muyu stood up and smiled. "Don't worry, we will still provide for your basic necessities." Wei Miao stood up as well. The arrogance in his eyes disappeared as he said, "Commander Yu, I admit defeat and admit defeat. I just don't know who your master is. How did you achieve a perfect engraving?" "I don't have any master. I'm self-taught." "Self-taught?" Wei Miao and the other engravers' jaws almost dropped. Lin Muyu's words had completely overturned their understanding of engraving. "Yes, I'm self-taught, I can attest to that." Tang Xiaoxi smiled. Wei Miao's face was solemn. "Commander Yu's talent is extraordinary. I, Wei Miao, am sincerely convinced." "What's there to be convinced about?" Lin Muyu laughed at herself. "I can do a level 1 engraving with 98% perfection. But I've never done a level 2 engraving. They're all failures." "What?" Wei Miao couldn't help but laugh. "Commander Yu, please don't lie to me. How is that possible? You haven't completed level 2 engraving?" "Yes, it seems like there's a problem." "Where did you learn to verify?" "In a book." "Which book?" "The Engraving Formation Manual." Suddenly, Wei Miao laughed so hard that tears almost rolled down his cheeks. "Commander Yu, no one has read that book for 10 years because many of the manuals are flawed and incomplete. Not a single engraver still studies those engraving formations." "This." Lin Muyu stood there awkwardly. Tang Xiaoxi said, "Master Wei Miao, since you're an expert in engraving, why don't you lend your manual to Mu?" "I'm sorry, Princess Shi." Wei Miao cupped his fists. "It's not that I'm unwilling to teach Commander Yu, but there's a rule in the engraving world. Family engraving cannot be passed on to outsiders. This is what my father taught me when I was young. Please forgive me for not being able to teach Commander Yu. It's fine." Lin Muyu waved her hand and smiled. "I'll study it myself. There will be a way out." "Thank you for your understanding, Commander Yu." As they walked out of the Zine Flower Merchant Association, Tang Xiaoxi couldn't hold back her temper anymore. She pouted and said unhappily, "That Wei Miao is such a jerk. How dare he say he won't teach it to outsiders? Humph, our Mu is giving him face by learning engraving from him. How dare he be so arrogant? I'm so angry." Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh and patted her shoulder. "Xiaoxi, you're too hot-tempered. It's not good." "Then Mu, are you still learning engraving?" "Of course, but without a better and more complete manual, I can't continue learning. There are many different martial arts manuals in the Zine Flower Merchant Association, but there isn't a single book related to engraving. It's strange. It seems like the engraving world's rules are true. Every family's engraving cannot be passed on to outsiders. The versions that are circulated outside are either incomplete or full of mistakes." "Then what should we do?" Tang Xiaoxi pouted and looked unhappy. It was as if she was unhappy because Lin Muyu couldn't learn engraving. It's okay. One must have ambition. If they don't want to teach me, I don't want to learn from them. Lin Muyu crossed her arms and suddenly squinted her eyes and said, Xiaoxi, help me find out who the most famous sealers are in the past few thousand years and where their graves are buried. The more specific the better. Humph. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but smile. You, a dignified general of the empire and a grand deacon of the temple, don't tell me you want to rob a grave. Otherwise, only the corpses would have some ancient books on advanced engraving techniques. It's much better to look for them than to randomly search for them. What's wrong, little she? You don't want to rob the tomb with me? Or do you think it's beneath you to do such a thing? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Tang Xiaoxi's cheeks instantly turned red. She smiled shyly and said, No, it's just that. I'm just going to rob a grave with you. Just thinking about it makes me a little excited. Damn you bastard. In Zetian Palace, Empress Qin was wearing a simple dress that outlined her graceful and perfect figure. The heaven-suppressing sword was placed on the sword rack at the side, and she was flipping through a book called The Strategy of Governance. When she heard Lin Muyu's words, the book in her hand immediately fell to the ground. Her majestic demeanor disappeared in the blink of an eye. She stood up and said, What? You are going to rob a grave? Yes. Lin Muyu said. I want to become a top engraver, so I have to do this. Brother you are leaving again. Qinin looked unhappy. Shengguan Jinghua smiled and said, Your Highness, are you acting coquettishly? Lin Muyu was amused. Chapter 478. The setting sun drew a long arc in the sky. On the long launchy ancient road, 3 people and 3 horses galloped at high speed. Lin Muyu was dressed in a white imperial robe and armor with the star's sword on her back. She didn't hide anything. Tang Xiaoxi, who was beside her, was also dressed in a military uniform. She wore a snow-white fur armor and a milky white animal skin short skirt, which outlined her exquisite figure beautifully. She wore an exquisite cloak embroidered with gold edges, which looked luxurious but not too shabby. The nation-suppressing whip, which was glowing with a faint flame, was at her waist. Behind the two of them was Bai Yin, who was on a slightly weaker warhorse. As Lin Muyu's personal bodyguard, Qinin had forced Bai Yin to tag along. Firstly, Bai Yin was quite strong and could help Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi. Secondly, Bai Yin was a super bandit who ran amok in the martial world. In a sense, he was better at robbing tombs. However, when Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were chatting, the beautiful princess she would let out a series of silvery bell-like sounds. This inevitably made Bai Yin feel a little awkward. He felt like he was a big light bulb following behind the two of them. However, this was an order from Empress Qin, so he had no choice but to follow. 1 day later, they entered the Seven Seas province. 3 days later, they entered the refined cloud forest at the eastern border of the Seven Seas province. It was already winter, and most of the trees in the refined cloud forest were red maples. At this time, the red maples had already withered, but they were still as red as fire. When the warhorses stepped into the refined cloud forest, Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but chuckle and said, Grandpa brought me here when I was young. However, I wasn't very sensible at that time and felt that Grandpa was too cautious. Now it seems that Grandpa's cautiousness isn't without reason. What do you mean? Lin Muyu asked. Tang Xiaoxi said, The refinement cloud forest is close to the north of the dragon-seeking forest. So many spirit beasts have entered the forest from the dragon-seeking forest. They often kill humans' livestock and sometimes even attack civilians. Therefore, most of the civilians in the refinement cloud forest have moved away. The ones left are hunters who make a living by hunting. No wonder there are so few people along the way. Yes, we have to be careful. Spirit beasts could appear here at any time. Bai Yin pulled out a steel sword with a dang sound and entered a state of alert. This was the steel sword that the royal guards were equipped with. It was extremely sharp and was of the spirit grade. When Qin bestowed this sword to him, he was almost overjoyed. The horse's hooves trod on the thick layer of fiery red maple leaves as it slowly advanced. Lin Muyu was not as nervous as Bai Yin. After all, he had the spirit pulse technique and could sense the aura of spiritual beasts from several kilometers away. Spiritual beasts were not like Bain, who was proficient in the tortoise breathing technique to conceal their aura. It would be difficult for them to escape the spirit pulse technique's control. Look, there's a village over there. Tang Xiaoxi excitedly pointed in the distance. There was smoke curling up from chimneys and the villagers were cooking. The village was located in the middle of the mountain, and there seemed to be a few dozen households. This was the first inhabited place within a few hundred kilometers. Tang Xiaoxi's excitement was naturally understandable. After all, walking in this desolate and uninhabited area was a feeling of isolation and suffocation. Bain looked up at the sky and saw that it was already dusk. He said, "Commander, it's getting dark and it's not safe in the mountains. Why don't we rest in this village and spend a few gold coins to eat a full meal, and then get a good night's sleep? At the same time, we can also find out which direction the Huai Royal Tomb is in the Cloud Refining Mountain Range." Yes. Lin Muyu nodded. What Bain said made sense. They only knew the general direction of King Huai's mausoleum, but they did not know the exact location. In any case, King Huai's mausoleum belonged to a king from 400 years ago. In other words, on Earth 4,000 years ago was the Shang dynasty. Who knew where the mausoleum of a king was? When the three of them led the horses into the village, a few hunters who were skinning a muntjac were startled. It seemed that no one had come to this village for a long time. Each of them were dumbfounded and didn't know what to say. Tang Xiaoxi stepped forward and gracefully cupped her hands with a flowery smile. Then she said with a gentle smile, "Hello, uncle. We're travelers from Lanyan City, the capital of the imperial capital. We're looking for a place to rest for the night. I wonder if you can introduce us to a resident." That's right. One of the hunters stepped forward and said, "Miss, you look like a lady from a wealthy family. Our village hasn't had someone like you for many years. How about this? I'll take you to the village chief's house. Only the village chief's house has spare rooms." "Okay, thank you very much." "You're welcome. Please follow me." Lin Muyu quickened her steps to catch up. She smiled and asked, "Uncle, your place is like a paradise. Do you just hunt for a living?" "Yes," the hunter said. "The land in the mountains is barren. There are stones everywhere. There is no way to farm, so we can only hunt. Fortunately, there is a lot of game in this forest. We often hunt muntjac, badger, wild boar, wild rabbit, and so on. We skin them and sell them in the city 300 miles away. It can also support our family." Oh. Lin Muyu didn't ask any more questions. Not long after, they arrived at the village chief's house. The village chief was an old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. He looked to be in his 70s. After learning why Lin Muyu and the others had come, he immediately arranged 2 rooms for them. He then asked his son and daughter-in-law to start a fire to cook for passers-by. Tang Xiaoxi also took out 2 jinan coins and handed them to him. In fact, 1 jinan coin was enough to support the village chief's family for a year, let alone 2. The village chief was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. Dinner was quite sumptuous. There were 2 plates of stir-fried wild vegetables, a plate of rabbit meat, and a plate of flatbread. This kind of food was probably the standard for people in the mountains during the new year. Therefore, Lin Muyu and Bain ate a lot of flatbread gratefully, and left the rabbit meat for Tang Xiaoxi, who knew that Tang Xiaoxi was also very sensible. She kept putting the rabbit meat into the old village chief's bowl, making him very happy. After dinner, it was time to get down to business. Each of them had a cup of tea. The village chief narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Young heroes, you must not have come to our desolate little village for us. Could it be that you want to enter the Cloud Refining Mountain Range to hunt high-grade spirit beasts? Looking at your restrained auras, you must be cultivators with profound cultivation bases." Tang Xiaoxi smiled. "You saw through us. But we are not here for the spirit beasts. Village chief, we would like to ask you something." "Oh, please ask away. Do you know where the Huai King's tomb is?" Tang Xiaoxi asked. "The Huai King's tomb?" The village chief was stunned. "I wonder, which king is that? The Cloud Refinement Mountains used to be a prosperous place. Many nobles' tombs are buried here. the Hui King Qinbing from 4,000 years ago. He is also the empire's most recent divine sealer. Do you remember him, village chief? Lin Muyu asked. Divine sealer. The village chief stroked his beard and pondered for a while. Suddenly he raised his head and said, I remember now. There was indeed a king who focused on engraving. His name was Qinbing. 7 years ago, He suddenly stopped talking. Tang Xiaoxi was a little anxious. She asked, What happened 7 years ago, Grandpa Head? When she called him Grandpa, the village head was immediately overjoyed. After all, such a beautiful little girl looked like she was from a noble family. It was good enough that she didn't call him old man. But now she called him Grandpa. There was nothing he could say about it. 7 years ago, there were also 3 mercenaries who claimed to be adventurers who passed through our village. Like you, they were also heading for the King Huai's tomb. I told them the direction, but unfortunately, they never appeared again. Maybe they were looking for treasures, or maybe they have disappeared. Lin Muyu asked, Do you know the specific location of the Hui King's tomb? Yes. The village chief nodded hard and said, I won't hide it from you. My ancestor was one of the craftsmen who built King Huai's tomb. Unfortunately, he didn't come back. I heard this from my grandfather's generation. People say that King Huai's tomb is very strange, so I advise you young heroes that life is precious, don't go if you can avoid it. Lin Muyu was stunned and didn't speak. Tang Xiaoxi was as smart as snow. With a coquettish tone she said, Grandpa village chief, don't worry. Mercenaries can't be compared to us. Our own strength is much stronger, so we will be fine. Come, Bai Yin, show us your strength and let Grandpa village chief see it. Yes. Bai Yin took a few steps back. After a low shout, he activated the Yangshen tactics. His body was covered with raging flames, and his martial spirit roared. The aura of a heavenly king was very threatening. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were saint-level warriors, so it didn't matter. But the village chief was so scared that he took a few steps back. He said with a face full of horror, This young hero's power is really not simple. So powerful, it scared me to death. Tang Xiaoxi moved to the side of the village chief like a butterfly and held his arm. She smiled and said, Grandpa Head, don't be afraid. We don't have any bad intentions. You just need to tell us where the Hui King's tomb is. The village chief nodded his head with lingering fear. He pointed to the east and said, Tomorrow morning, go in the direction of the sunrise. After climbing over 7 mountains, you will see a canyon. Deep in the canyon is a pool. Jump into the pool. At the bottom of the pool, there is an underwater passage. Swim through the passage, and you will reach the Hui King's tomb. But you must be careful. Don't come into contact with the people living around the canyon. Otherwise, you will regret it for the rest of your life. The people living around the canyon? Tang Xiaoxi was stunned. Why? Anyway, just listen to Grandpa. It won't go wrong. The village chief looked like he was afraid and didn't say another word. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi looked at each other. It seemed that this trip to the Hui King's tomb was not that simple. Chapter 479. Early in the morning, facing the rising sun, the young man finally set off. Actually, it couldn't be considered early in the morning. Before the sun rose, Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but drag Bai Yin out of bed and set off. The 3 horses galloped away, leaving the small village in the blink of an eye. The mountainous terrain was difficult to traverse. When the war horses reached the mountainside, they couldn't ride them anymore. They could only dismount and lead the horses forward. The road was full of thistles and thorns. Lin Muyu cut through the thistles and thorns with her stellar sword, causing Bai Yin's heart to ache. It was such a pity that a substandard divine weapon like the stellar sword was used to open a path. It was already dusk when they finished traversing the 7 mountains. When the 3 of them stood on the mountain top, they couldn't help but be shocked by the scenery in front of them. The vast valley was surrounded by clouds and mist, as if it was a fairyland. Between the mountains and forests in the valley, there were simple and crude thatched huts. They were probably the residents that the village chief had mentioned. They had to stay away from these residents. Lin Muyu thought about the village chief's words and said, It's getting late. Let's not enter the valley now. We'll go in tomorrow at daybreak. Let's find a place to hide from the wind and set up camp on the mountaintop. Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said, okay. Thus, they set up camp under a rock wall that blocked the wind and set up 2 tents. After the tents were set up, they started a fire and cooked the swan and eye meat. Bai Yin was lucky today to be able to enjoy the swan and eye meat together. The meat soup was mellow and fragrant. After eating and drinking their fill, the 3 of them sat around the bonfire and cultivated. Lin Muyu immediately refined the spiritual energy in the swan and eye meat in her stomach. She felt the energy in her body grow stronger, and her cultivation increased a little. Tang Xiaoxi closed her beautiful eyes, and the aura of flames surrounded her body. The image of the 2-tailed firefox was faintly discernible. Woo-woo. Bai Yin found it rather difficult to refine the spiritual energy in the swan and eye meat. Moreover, his face started to turn red and he looked like he was about to lose control. Lord Commander, what happened to me? Bai Yin looked at Lin Muyu in pain, then turned to look at Tang Xiaoxi. Princess Shi, who was as beautiful as a flower, was so alluring. The confusion in Bai Yin's eyes began to turn into desire. Bai Yin, control your mind. Don't have any improper thoughts. Lin Muyu said calmly. Her meaning was clear. Xiaoxi is my woman. You can't touch her as you please. Besides, Tang Xiaoxi's strength had already reached the first layer of the Saint Realm, and after her transformation, she would at least leap to the level of the Holy King Realm. Bai Yin was no match for her at all. Putting aside molestation, he would be lucky not to be beaten to death. At this time, Tang Xiaoxi opened her eyes and couldn't help but laugh. He doesn't know the mind-cleansing incantation. Moo. Why do you have to tease him like this? Hee, let me deal with him. As she spoke, she formed a seal with her fingers, and a blue light condensed between her snow-white fingers. She shouted softly in the air, heart-cleansing incantation. Whoosh. The blue light rushed over and cleansed the heat on Bai Yin's body. His mind instantly became clear, and he couldn't help but blush. He said, I'm ashamed. It's fine. Swanni's flesh is hot by nature. I was the same back then. Refine the spiritual energy in your flesh. It will be of great benefit to your cultivation, Lin Muyu said. Yes, thank you, Commander. Bai Yin cupped his fists respectfully. Lin Muyu was secretly gratified. Although Bai Yin was a great bandit, he wasn't someone who harbored evil intentions. She could tell from his actions just now. It was late at night. Tang Xiaoxi crawled into one of the tents while Bai Yin entered the other. Thus, Lin Muyu was faced with a difficult choice. If she entered Tang Xiaoxi's tent, it would be easy for Bai Yin to overthink things. If she entered Bai Yin's tent, she would overthink things. How could a straight man's dignity be blasphemed? There was no room for negotiation. Tang Xiaoxi pulled open a corner of the tent and revealed her cute head. She smiled and asked, You're still not coming in? Are you embarrassed? The tent at the side was also pulled open. Bai Yin said righteously, Commander, it's fine. You can sleep with Princess Shi. I promise to keep my mouth shut. Besides, it's not like you haven't slept together before. Lin Muyu rolled her eyes at him and said, I won't sleep tonight. I'll keep watch for you. It's not too safe here, so you two should sleep. Bai Yin, wake up at the 4th watch and replace me. I only need to sleep for 2 hours. Yes, I understand. However, Tang Xiaoxi pouted her lips and looked unwilling. After being together with Lin Muyu for so long, she had long treated Lin Muyu as the closest person to her even though she hadn't completely let go of her reserved nature. She had even abandoned her clan and made Lin Muyu her only one. This kind of dependence was self-evident. Lin Muyu looked at Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful and delicate appearance and couldn't help but smile. She walked forward with her stellar sword and patted Tang Xiaoxi's head. She smiled and said, I'll stay here with you. I won't go far. As she spoke, she sat down with her back facing Tang Xiaoxi's tent. Tang Xiaoxi nodded in satisfaction and left a small opening in the tent. This way, when she lay down, she could see Lin Muyu sitting outside. She was probably tired and soon fell asleep. The cold night wind whistled past. Lin Muyu sat there majestically. His body was surrounded by starlight and the stars in the sky gathered around him. It looked like a spectacle. It had been too long since he had a breakthrough in the stellar formula. He had to train hard. The only advantage of the stellar formula over the 7 planets was that there were no side effects. As long as he had enough battle chi, he could use it continuously. This was also the biggest reason why Lin Muyu trained so hard. In the night sky, starlight flickered around his armor. Lin Muyu closed his eyes and released his spirit sense into the realm of the stellar formula. After an unknown amount of time, an unpleasant smell suddenly came along with the wind. It was accompanied by a hair-raising, woo-woo sound, like the cry of a zombie. Ha! Lin Muyu hurriedly opened his eyes. The bonfire had already been extinguished, but there was a figure moving between the rocks and shrubs in the south. He opened his palm and the starlight surged, illuminating nearly 100 meters. It was a human, but not a normal human. His skin was petrified and turned into the shape of fish scales. Suddenly, a word jumped in Lin Muyu's heart. Stonefish? God, there really is such a disease in this world, and such a person. The upper half of the stonefish patient's body had begun to petrify. There were 2 lifeless eyes on his rock-like face. He walked over step by step, his body gently swaying in the cold wind. Stonefish patients should not touch his skin, or else they would also get stonefish. The sun was about to rise. Lin Muyu hurriedly said, Xiaoxi Baiyin, get up, we have trouble. Inside the tent, the 2 sleeping in their clothes immediately walked out. When they saw the stonefish patient in front of them, Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but be stunned. Her mouth was wide open, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. Stonefish. Baiyin was experienced and knowledgeable. He lightly said, Don't touch him, and don't touch his saliva or blood, or else you will also get stonefish. Commander, I'll hold him back. You guys leave quickly. No. Lin Muyu pointed to the right and said, There are more over there. Following the direction of his finger, as expected, a ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds and landed on the mountain. The stonefish patients swayed over, and they had already fallen into a state of unconsciousness. Leave the tent, get ready to leave. Lin Muyu's voice was unquestionable. He suddenly opened his palm, and a golden ray of light flew out, turning into a gourd vine that wrapped around the stonefish patient at the front. Baiyin drew his sword and was ready to make a move. Don't kill them. Lin Muyu pulled Tang Xiaoxi's hand and jumped down the mountain. Just trap them. We don't have to kill them. The stonefish patients move slowly. We just need to leave. Yes. Baiyin returned his sword to its scabbard, and with a leap, he activated Absolute Step and chased after Lin Muyu. Lin Muyu flew away, using the gourd vines to trap the stonefish patients. At the same time, he glanced at the 3 horses in the distance. Fortunately, the stonefish patients did not seem to be interested in the horses. They were only interested in humans, so there was no need to worry about the horses. For a moment, golden gourd vines rose from the mountain, trapping the stonefish patients. In the blink of an eye, there were more than 10 golden gourd vines on the mountain, and each of them consumed a certain amount of their martial spirit's power. Just when the 7 luminaries' immortal gourd Xianqi was about to be used up, a pool of water appeared in front of them. We're here. Baiyin was shocked. I don't know how to swim. Lin Muyu glared at him. You know the turtle breathing technique, but you don't know how to swim. This subordinate really doesn't know how to swim. Baiyin was ashamed. Tang Xiaoxi couldn't help but laugh. Just grab the other end of my nation-suppressing whip, jump into the water, and use the turtle breathing technique to hold your breath. Mu and I will swim with you. Yes. Lin Muyu said, summon your battle armor, otherwise your body won't be able to take it if the water is too cold. The 3 of them summoned their battle armor at the same time, their battle chi swirling around them, and they jumped into the water. Under the cover of their battle armor, the water couldn't touch their skin, so Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were able to open their eyes. On the other hand, Baiyin, who was proficient in the turtle breathing technique but didn't know how to swim, was too scared to open his eyes. Behind them, the wails of the stoneflies came from the shore. Lin Muyu withdrew the 7 luminaries' immortal gourd Xianqi and raised her starlight sword to illuminate the depths of the water. The pool was not very deep. After 20 meters, they would reach the bottom. Sure enough, there was a stone passageway. There were even patterns carved around the passageway. It was clearly a representation of human civilization. The design here was truly ingenious. Lin Muyu held Tang Xiaoxi's hand and swam forward, while the long tail of the 9-segmented whip tugged at Bai Yin. Bai Yin did not dare to open his eyes, so his face slammed directly into the stone wall at the top of the passageway. Bang! It was painful to hear. This idiot! Lin Muyu was furious. This subordinate of hers was too stupid, and he had the nerve to call himself the saint thief. Tang Xiaoxi giggled, and with a flick of her nation-suppressing whip, she gently pulled Bai Yin over. They continued to swim forward, and soon they reached the bottom of the pond, only to find that they were surrounded by a different world. Chapter 480. This was a mausoleum that had been excavated from the inside of the mountain. 9 huge pillars carved with purple flowers stood around the mausoleum. In the center of the pillars, there was a throne quietly placed there. Below the throne were the words, Huai Royal Mausoleum. Lin Muyu walked forward and shook off the water on her body. She squinted her eyes and said, Huai Royal Mausoleum? Looks like we didn't find the wrong place. This is the place. Tang Xiaoxi looked around, her face full of confusion. But how are we going to enter the mausoleum? From the looks of it, there's no way to find it. Not necessarily. Lin Muyu's gaze landed on the wall not far away. There were ancient murals engraved there. There were humans, livestock, and even some dazzling gods. It seemed like the Qin clan 4,000 years ago believed in these things. Humans cultivated and cultivated, while the gods ruled over the 3 realms. Bai Yin walked forward and gently stroked the carvings. Suddenly his eyes turned cold. He exerted some force in his palm, and the stone brick formed by the carvings was moved. Rumble. The rumbling sound was incessant, and a hole about a meter long appeared. Amazing. Bai Yin, you must have raided tombs before. Lin Muyu said confidently. Bai Yin was a little embarrassed. Commander, I'm only good at leaping onto roofs and vaulting over walls. I've never done something like raiding tombs before. Just now, I discovered that this brick had signs of being moved. Look, the dust on the other carvings is thicker than this one. That's why I guessed that there would be a clue here. Smart. Lin Muyu stood in front of the cave entrance and felt a gust of cold wind brushing against her face. Moreover, after the cave entrance was opened, a strong wave came from the spiritual pulse technique. What's wrong? Tang Xiaoxi asked. There's a spirit beast below the tomb. Its aura is very strong. Lin Muyu said lightly. Spirit beast? Tang Xiaoxi was stunned. Bai Yin said. It should be a holy tomb guardian beast. Many nobles will bury a spiritual beast that has lived for several thousand years in the first level of their tomb as a holy tomb guardian beast. Spiritual beasts can survive by absorbing the spiritual energy of the world. These spiritual beasts can often live for tens of thousands of years, and after absorbing too much of the deathly aura from the ground, these spiritual beasts will become extremely vicious. We have to be careful. No matter how powerful the spiritual beast that was buried with Huai Prince Qin Bing was, it has now gained another 4,000 years of age. Yes. Lin Muyu slowly unsheathed her stellar sword. With a light wave of her left hand, a golden dragon blood shield materialized. She said, I'll go down and take a look. You two wait outside. I'll call you if I need help. Yes, Commander. Tang Xiaoxi opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but stopped herself. At the same time, he said loudly, It's nothing. Wait for me to deal with it, then you can come in. Hiss. The golden thread python flew into a rage out of humiliation. It suddenly opened its mouth, and venom filled the sky. Lin Muyu steeled her heart and suddenly shook her arms. The king's combat flame on her body flew out, forming a substantial qi domain. Bang bang bang. The venom was reflected back. Suddenly, a hissing sound could be heard, and the venom was corroding the golden thread python's scales. The opportunity had come. She used the star step of falling star step for the second time. Her figure flashed, and in the next moment, The great treasure sword wrapped around the star's sword landed heavily on the golden thread python's vital spot for the second time. Bang! The spirit beast's protective aura was completely shattered, and the star's sword had already cut about 10 centimeters into the golden thread python's flesh. Hiss hiss, the giant python howled, and its tail suddenly swept across like a sharp knife. Lin Muyu did not give way. She spun her body, and the dragon blood battle shield met the python head-on. With a loud bang, the golden thread python's tail was peeled off inch by inch. The disparity in strength was too great. It was completely not a match for Lin Muyu. The third opportunity to attack came. The star's sword in Lin Muyu's hand fell heavily. K. A crisp sound rang out, and the golden thread python's cry was cut off. That was because its entire head had been cut off by Lin Muyu's sword. The seven luminaries' celestial sword martial soul's power even penetrated the ground, shattering all the stone bricks. All right, you two can come in. With the crisis resolved, Lin Muyu called for the two to enter. When Tang Xiaoxi and Bai Yin stepped into the first level of the tomb, they were immediately stunned. A 12,400-year-old golden thread python was dealt with by you in 2 or 3 moves. Tang Xiaoxi asked in astonishment. Yes, in 3 moves. Lin Muyu was proud of herself. Isn't my big sword powerful? Yes, you didn't even give me a chance to show off. Tang Xiaoxi's small mouth curled up, and she looked unhappy. Bai Yin cupped his fists. Commander, I will follow you for sure. Lin Muyu. After cutting open the golden thread python's head and taking its spirit stone, its beast spirit was slowly dissipating. It was a pity that Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi, and Bai Yin had not reached the peak of this level, and refining the beast spirit was not beneficial. Looking at the white bones on the ground, Tang Xiaoxi stuck out her tongue. It seems that the mercenaries who visited the village chief's house 7 years ago have become delicious food for the golden thread python. But after today, the Huai royal tomb will definitely become a paradise for grave robbers. In a sense, we really owe Xiaoyin. Don't worry. Lin Muyu patted her shoulder. We came to the Huai royal tomb with sincerity and asked ancestor Qin Bing to teach us the art of engraving. I believe he won't be angry. That may not be true. Tang Xiaoxi burst into laughter, and Lin Muyu had goosebumps. Would Qin Bing be angry? She would have to ask him himself. At this time, Bai Yin had already pushed aside a floor tile and found the entrance to the next level of the Huai royal tomb. A strong gust of wind blew, and Bai Yin couldn't help but take a few steps back. Looking at the dark entrance, he looked hesitant. What the hell is this? It's so strong. Bai Yin was only at the heaven realm, and they couldn't let him take this risk. Lin Muyu walked forward. I'll go in first, you guys just follow me. Yes, Commander. After a moment of silence, Lin Muyu gathered the dragon blood shield again. Holding the shield in his left hand and the stellar sword in his right, he walked down step by step. As expected, the wind was very hot, and there was a dense aura surging in the spiritual pulse technique. It confused him. The aura wasn't too strong, but it was very dense. What was it? The ground was rotten, and he could see pieces of charred bones. It seemed that there were people who went around the golden thread python to enter the second level of the tomb, but the result was the same. They all died. Holding the sword, he walked forward step by step. Tang Xiaoxi followed closely behind, while Bai Yin held the steel sword and looked around vigilantly. Buzz buzz, suddenly he heard a faint sound, like a bee flapping its wings. What's that? The stellar sword spun slowly, and suddenly, a blood-red hornet could be seen flying not too far away. This hornet looked extremely terrifying, and there was even a flame aura lingering around its body. Lin Muyu's eyesight was extraordinary, and she could clearly see that there was a golden line on the hornet's head. Heavens, a 1,000-year wasp? A queen wasp? Be careful, it's a ghost wasp, it's poisonous. Bai Yin hurriedly warned. Ghost wasp? Lin Muyu's attack was extremely fast. With a sweep of the stellar sword, the ghost bee was instantly cut into 2. He sneered. What ghost bee? It's just SOSO. It's simply trash. Tang Xiaoxi's beautiful eyes were filled with worry, and she stretched out her hand to point ahead and said, Moo moo, don't be in such a hurry to brag. Quickly look over there, there are so many ghost bees. Chapter 481. The dark tunnel was filled with buzzing sounds. The dense and powerful aura from the spirit pulse technique surged. In an instant, Lin Muyu felt her scalp go numb. She hurriedly took a few steps back with her sword and shielded Tang Xiaoxi and Bai Yin behind her. What should we do? Ghost bees are afraid of fire, Tang Xiaoxi said. Okay. Lin Muyu shouted and instantly raised the power of the king's fighting flame to its peak. She pushed her palm forward, and suddenly, a golden wall of the gourd cut off the entire tunnel. The king's fighting flame surrounding the wall of the gourd turned into high-temperature flames. When the ghost bees flew over, they could only hit the wall of the gourd. Then, their wings were burnt by the king's fighting flame, and they fell to the ground screaming in pain. After all, they were 1,000-year-old ghost bees with strong vitality. The king's fighting flame could only burn their wings, but it could not kill them. Just like that, the wall of the gourd stood in the tunnel like a fire net. Tens of thousands of ghost bees buzzed over, creating blood-red sparks on the wall. It was a spectacular sight. Tang Xiaoxi and Bai Yin were both dumbfounded. This was the strength of a Saint King Realm master. Facing the attack of tens of thousands of ghost bees, Lin Muyu was actually able to remain undefeated. If it had been Lin Muyu before she reached the Saint Realm, she would have been stung into a pig's head. Soon, their noses were filled with a burning smell. Tens of thousands of ghost bees that had lost their legs and wings were lying on the ground. They were like silkworms that had lost the ability to move, but they still made squeaking sounds. Their bodies were also writhing in pain, but only death awaited them. The charred bones in the second underground floor of the Huai King's tomb were probably the work of these ghost bees. Not only did they sting people, but they also ate human flesh. Not only that, but they also burned the bones after eating the human flesh. There was nothing they wouldn't do. Let's go. Lin Muyu held her stellar sword and stomped over. Instantly, her battle boots crushed the bodies of countless ghost bees. Pu-pu-pu. Sounds could be heard as juice splattered out. It was extremely disgusting. Bai Yin furrowed his brows and followed along. The feeling of stepping on the ghost bee felt even better. Tang Xiaoxi, on the other hand, was much more reserved. With a light cry, she summoned her Firefox martial spirit. Raging flames surrounded the soles of her feet as she followed Lin Muyu. She really didn't want to deal with these ghost bees. The passageway of the tomb chamber was very dark. Lin Muyu raised the stellar sword and condensed the flame power around the blade to illuminate the surroundings. The three of them walked very slowly. They saw that the walls on both sides of the tomb were engraved with characters and murals. As they got closer, Lin Muyu read slowly. According to the Emperor's decree, the fortune of the human world varies from person to person. Prince Huai Qinbing was honest, loved his people, and was loyal to his country. Stop reading. Tang Xiaoxi held his arm and said, "It's all praising the owner of the tomb, it's worthless." Yes. Bai Yin sniffed with all his might and said, "Commander Princess Shi, do the two of you smell an extremely strange smell? It's a fragrance that makes one feel extremely fresh." Lin Muyu also sniffed carefully and said, "I think there is. It's right in front." "Yes, let's go take a look." According to the ancient records, King Huai's tomb was built on the 5th floor. We must find the entrance to the 3rd floor. As they continued to walk forward, the stone walls on both sides of the passageway of the tomb chamber had some cracks. If they weren't wrong, they should be cracks caused by earthquakes that happened thousands of years ago. However, it was worth rejoicing that these earthquakes didn't destroy the entire tomb chamber. Otherwise, Lin Muyu and the others would definitely have come for nothing. At this moment, the depths of the tomb chamber reflected a white light under the radiance of the stellar sword. Lin Muyu took a few quick steps forward, and immediately discovered small white flowers growing on the stone walls. Each flower had 5 petals, and there was dew on the petals as well as rays of holy light. Lin Muyu couldn't help but be ecstatic and said, "It's a soul flower." "Soul flower?" Tang Xiaoxi said in shock. "What a familiar name." "Of course it's familiar," Lin Muyu said happily. "The soul flower is a level 10 herb. It's recorded in all kinds of medicine books. And the soul flower is also the most holy thing in the world. It's said that it can cure hundreds of poisons. My God. The most holy flower in the world actually grows in such a filthy place. It's simply unbelievable. Bai Yin said. Maybe the soul flower grew here to suppress the corpse energy in the depths of the tomb chamber. Corpse energy? Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. She said, Bai Yin, you bastard, don't scare me. What corpse energy? Do you think there are zombies here? Bai Yin malevolently smiled. Could it be? Commander, after cultivating in the Shattered Cauldron realm for so many years, you really haven't seen a soulless person? What is a soulless person? Lin Muyu asked while collecting the soul flower. Bai Yin explained. It's a zombie, a corpse without a soul, but it can move and absorb the essence of humans. There are many records of this in ancient books, especially in some tombs deep in the mountains where there is no one to take care of them. The Yin energy is too strong, and it's extremely easy for a corpse to not decompose for a long time. Then the corpse will absorb the Yin energy and become a zombie. As for this place, Bai Yin frowned and said, to be honest, this tomb is located in the shadow of a pond, so the Yin energy here is unusually strong. Moreover, Huai Wang Qinbing was a cultivator when he was alive, and he was unable to reach the divine realm. His resentment must be unusually strong, so the possibility of him turning into a zombie is very high. Tang Xiaoxi was shocked. She grabbed Lin Muyu's white robe with one hand and held the nation-suppressing whip with the other. Flames lingered on the whip, illuminating the dark tunnel behind her. She was frightened. All right, shut up. Lin Muyu glared at Bai Yin and said, You've almost scared our princess Shi to the point of losing her ability to fight. If we really encounter something later, you'll have to deal with it alone. Bai Yin grinned. This subordinate knows his mistake. I won't say it anymore. Not long after, Lin Muyu had collected all the soul flowers along the way and put them into her Qianquan bag. However, when the three of them arrived at the end of the tunnel, they were stunned again. There was actually a stone coffin erected on the stone wall at the end of the tunnel. The stone coffin was covered in moss, and there were even black worms crawling on it. It made one's hair stand on end. What the hell? Bai Yin gritted his teeth and said, A stone coffin guarding the entrance. It seems that there is indeed something strange in the depths of Huai King's tomb, and he moved closer to take a look and said, The words on the stone coffin are reversed. This means that the stone coffin was placed upside down. Heaven and earth are reversed, and the universe is reversed. A person who can use this kind of curse is definitely not a good person. There's someone in this stone coffin, and it's someone who guarded Huai King Qinbing's tomb. Moreover, he's an evil person. Otherwise, Qinbing wouldn't have allowed him to be buried with him. Lin Muyu narrowed her eyes and said, You mean the person in the stone coffin might have already turned into a zombie? Isn't it possible? Bai Yin stretched out his hand and gently wiped the bottom of the stone coffin. Instantly, his fingers were filled with black blood. He couldn't help but frown and say, He's already turned into a zombie. Such strong Yin qi. Lord Commander, we must kill this zombie, or else we won't be able to go to the third floor. How do we kill him? Open the coffin lid, pull him out and chop him off. What if he retaliates? He will definitely retaliate. Move aside. Yes. Bai Yin and Tang Xiaoxi retreated a few steps, but Lin Muyu raised the star sword. With a shout, the two martial souls broke out of her body and rapidly fused into the Seven Luminaries' immortal sword. Under Lin Muyu's control, the Seven Luminaries' immortal sword, a super grade 1 martial soul, was condensed into a light blade that was only 3 meters long. She added it to the star's sword. The 9 flame tails swayed slowly behind her, and suddenly, a star-offering seal landed on the Vajra corpse's body. Bang! This time, the Vajra protection divine art around the Vajra corpse's body was completely destroyed. A figure flashed by, and Bai Yin's steel sword slashed straight through. Immediately, the Vajra corpse's head flew, and it fell straight to the ground. Commander, the Vajra corpse has been killed. Can this be recorded in my merit book? Bai Yin asked respectfully. Stealing a kill, shameless. Lin Muyu said lightly. Tang Xiaoxi, that you're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.